what do you got?
I think I can prove to a judge that both of these men had the mens rea.
What the hell is a mens rea?
It's a legal term the lawyers use. It just means the intention to commit a crime.
Okay, come on, let's go.
Mens rea?
Put the cuffs on him.
How could we have gotten mens rea? We take blood? Can you do it without taking blood? We both use condoms. How is this possible? I want to see a doctor. Can I have an independent blood test?
Money!
I feel sick.
What are you doing?
Mens rea! Oh! Oh! My God!
Don't get into other subjects. Come on.
Are we here now? Are we here now? Yay, there we go. What the hell was that? Huh. All right, whatever that was about, I have no idea. That's literally where the old my car doesn't start. Well, shake a few wires. Did you plug it, unplug it, and plug it back in? That seemed to work, whatever it was. All right. No idea what the deal was there. But hey, here I am. Let's start all over again. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are, whoever you're with, whatever you're doing, and however good it feels. I'm Legal Vices, and this is my channel, Legal Vices, for the second time. You just didn't hear me the first time. Wow. Hi ho, Jeff and Chad, says Chaos Coordinator. Going to be on listen only for a while, making birthday cake for my friend, mango and cream. Ooh, yum. That sounds good. Well, happy birthday to your friend. You should invite your friend around for a little happy birthday listening party. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad you're all here. Today was day 2 of the gym. It was leg and back day, and the bastard put me back on some arms after yesterday's arm day. So I'm not tired, not lethargic. I just can't move very quickly. So, literally all motions are about half to 3/4 speed. So yeah, if it seems like I'm a bit sluggish, I literally can't move. Well, all right. With that, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing day 2. Well, I'm sorry, afternoon of day 1 of the KEETLEY trial. We're going to start right out with the prosecution's case in chief. They're going to be calling some witnesses, and we're going to see what they're doing. We saw the presentation that they had. Both parties had their opening statements. And let's see, the prosecutor. Here's some of the main points of the prosecution. KEETLEY's a vigilante. He investigated the crime himself after the police didn't find anybody. He was looking for a suspect named Creeper. He hired a friend to be some muscle. And he said that they're going to call some witnesses, and one witness is going to say that the victim was there with them preparing Thanksgiving dinner. He looked up the term Glock like a bunch of times. He looked up the address where this alleged incident occurred. Well, the incident occurred there, where the incident he allegedly perpetrated was a bunch of times. He looked up the word uniform about 1 million times, and he looked up the name Omar, who was the government name of Creeper, approximately 12,000 times. The victims were taking the marijuana and the cocaine. And a group of 6 or 7 people are hanging out on a porch. A van pulls up. A white guy gets out. He's dressed like law enforcement with a gun. They said it was a pump action shotgun. She said repeatedly, not a pump action rifle or a pump action long gun. It was she distinctly said a pump action shotgun, but they recovered 45 shells, 45 casings. Kind of weird, but maybe she just misspoke. We'll have to see. And this person says, "Ask you, where's Creeper?" But Creeper Omar isn't there. And then he gets them on the ground. He kneels them on the ground, checks their ID, and then he starts blasting them in the back of the head, execution style. You got 2 of them. Everybody else scattered. He pegged 4 of them. He picked 4 of them off, I guess we should say. Can't say that other P word these days, you know. He plugged 4 of them, and one person apparently got away scot-free. So 2 people are dead, 4 people are injured. And they found shell casings, wallets, driver's licenses, and stuff that were left behind, and they collected them as evidence. They interviewed KEETLEY later and asked him if Creeper was responsible. He said, "I don't know. I've never heard of a guy named Creeper. Nobody ever asked anyone about Creeper." He owns a .45 Glock, which was the same caliber as the casings at the site. There was a fingerprint somewhere. I forget where it was. I just wrote fingerprint down in my notes. He has a friend named Smith who's a machinist, and apparently the defendant asked him if he machined weapons parts. And then they went off on the case markings, the microscopic comparisons, and they all came from the same firearm, and that voodoo that Steve Gosney talked about yesterday, and how unreliable that these case marking comparisons are. But going back to the day of what happened, what perpetrated all of this was, he was robbed. The defendant was robbed of $12 and blasted in the hand. He was shot like 5 times, I think. 5 or 6 times he was shot. One of them blasted his hand. And so he was out for revenge, is what they're saying. And the prosecution says he can, even though his hand was blasted and his radial nerve was severely damaged, he could still, fingerprint was on some notepad or a journal. Yeah, something like that. So I can't remember. Something pretty insignificant, it seemed like to me. But he had his hand was blasted, his radial nerve was damaged, but they said he could still fire a gun. And Smith, his friend Smith, the machinist, apparently modified the gun with an aftermarket barrel. And of course, the defendant allegedly searched for aftermarket barrel a lot of times on Google. And then there was a car painter named Bose. KEETLEY shows up the day after Thanksgiving, the day after he was robbed. Mr. Bose isn't there. He cleans out the inside of his van, takes multiple trash bags full of stuff, throws them away. Bose shows up. They wash his van. They sand it down. They repaint it. And he was obsessed with revenge. But he perpetrated his revenge on the wrong guys. I want my $2. Great movie. Snow. It's a mountain of snow. Pure snow. All right. So that was the prosecution's case. And the defense, they said, well, we agree with the government that a terrible crime occurred. We agree the 2 people are dead. We agree it's wrong they were killed, but we do not agree that it was him. He didn't do it. And then he said, the defense lawyer, who was very passionate, said something that I really, really like. He said, the defendant is presumed guilty unless, not until, which, that's the presumption that the rest of the sentence is he's presumed innocent unless the prosecution proves it, not until the prosecution proves it, which I liked. You're presumed innocent unless. So it's not fair to assume guilt. You don't start in the middle with, I don't know if he's guilty or not. You start with he's not guilty. And the defendant is there to let you know he's not guilty. So that tells me that he's inclined to testify. If he says they specifically said he is here to let you know he is not guilty. And was my brain misfiring again? Yeah, you're presumed not guilty. You're You're innocent unless proven guilty, not until proven guilty. So it's not fair to assume guilt. Now I'm scared that I'm going to be mistalking again. It's not fair to assume guilt. You don't start in the middle. You presume they're not guilty. That's how you start. Which I loved all of that big thing he did there in the middle. And he said the courtroom is filled with reasonable doubt, but only one doubt is enough for an acquittal. And he said evidence will show irrefutably that he could not have done it. He said people who robbed him were wearing ski masks. He gave them $12 and then they shot him 5 times. So yeah, I am not drunk, Renee. I haven't had anything to drink. Stop it. Dave Halpern, the chief of plastic surgery who operated on Keaton, he's going to come and talk about the extent of the injury. Apparently, he's going to say it was a comminuted fracture, I believe he called it. The bullet shattered his hand, damaged the radial nerve, and it is physically impossible for him at that time to have used a gun. So he couldn't close his hand. They did a bunch of electrical tests on it, which I have had when I had my motorcycle accident. I don't know if any of you have seen my. I don't think but like this scar that runs the length of my arm, that was from a motorcycle accident. So is that scar there. I broke both of my arms in one motorcycle accident. And this one, it really, really damaged the radial nerve, and my arm was paralyzed for about a year. It was like just over 10 months, 10, 11 months before I could even start to move it. And so it's, I get what he's talking about with this radial nerve thing. So yeah, that's the deal with that. So he says those electric tests are weird as hell, but he said they ran the electrical test, which tests to see if the nerves are responding to electrical impulses, and there was no improvement in November, just a few weeks before, or maybe in a few days. They didn't give us a date. They just said in November. So in November, just a few days or a few weeks before this shooting occurred on Thanksgiving, he had no improvement in his hand. So they're saying it was absolutely physically impossible for him to have done it. And he said yes, the defendant is a motivated victim. He wanted to find out who did the guy, but he said he told the police they were black and dark complected. And he said that the word on the street was they were Hispanic. He wanted them to be caught, not killed. The guy gave a great delivery. He was very animated. But he said the police did nothing. Never was the guy said that everybody in the neighborhood liked him. The defendant was never accused of threatening anyone ever. And there are personal identification witnesses. He said it was dark, it was quick, the shadow comes, the shadow shoots, and the shadow goes. He said the victim, he's going to have someone testify about weapons fixation. Now, if someone sticks a gun in your face, you're more focused on the gun rather than the description of whoever is pointing the gun at you. And then he says it was a black pump action shotgun. They brought up the shotgun thing. It was just weird. And he said they're going to talk about cross-race identification problems. And he said the shooter was 6'1" or 6'2", witnesses were putting, but that's taller than the defendant is. And he said he said something that was really interesting. He said, with some of the witnesses, he says, listen for the prosecution misleading the police. So that was an interesting thing for me. I wrote that down. He said, listen for the prosecution misleading the police. I'll have to see what that means. And he said unequivocally, he has said, I have never seen this man before in my life. There was a lineup with people. This was the witness. The witnesses were saying, I have never seen this man before in my life. They do a lineup. They put some pictures in front of him. And those picture things, I really, really hate those. Those can be so manipulated. The picture identification things. They put up the picture and they go, okay, like this guy here, do you recognize? Was it any one of these guys? Was it any one of these guys? Does it look like any one of these pictures I'm pointing at? And then you can eat, and there was no video. There is no video done of this photo lineup they did. So we have no idea how they questioned them, whether they did any of that shady shit. We just don't know. And that's what he called out. He said some guy heard about it, and this is where the misidentification comes in. Yeah, Hetfield did. He had Hetfield's on the cover of this issue of Cigar Aficionado, which I just got today. So he said that the misidentification happened when somebody heard, some rando internet guy heard that the guy who was robbed was the shooter. And the police never followed up on who started this email. And this email just started to disseminate itself out through the internet. And he's going to say, some of the witnesses are going to say the gun was in his left hand. Some of the witnesses are going to say that the gun was in his right hand. And the police, he said, the police rules, if you follow the rules, that will also admit that the identification is weak. And no, he said we don't know how the pictures were presented. There's no record. And then he talks about this Smith guy, this craftsman, this machinist. He said at some point Smith put a gun to the defendant's head. So whatever that is, we're going to hear about that later. And then with regard to the internet searches, he says that they can't show that it was the defendant that made any of those searches, and they can't put any of the searches in any sort of context. That's kind of the summary of the opening statements. And what we're going to do now is we're going to jump into the witness part of it. We're going to watch it at our normal 1.25 speed. Unless it gets too slow or too fast, then we will adjust accordingly. Before we get going, we have Michelle. Michelle, bring in the Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for that wonderful, amazing South African super chat. And everybody here, we have our like and subscribe poll up here. We got 427 people waiting for the afternoon session of day one for this. While you're waiting, only 215 of you, that's exactly half of you, have hit the like button. So jump around down there right now, hit this like button, let YouTube know that you like what's going on and that you want everyone else to know about it so the YouTube will get it off in its algorithm and recommend it while we're still live. Hit that like button. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do. I would love to have your subscription. I'm just checking to see where we are in subscription land here. Subscription land is what? We currently have 36,011 subscribers, marching slowly towards 50,000. All right. And so our poll today, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you have subscribed, please double check to make sure you are still subscribed. YouTube is doing their they do about every week now. It used to be like once a month they would purge subscribers. Now they do it like every week. But anywho, do that and then take our like and subscribe poll. The like and subscribe poll today is, did you smash the like and subscribe buttons? It was a rocky road, but I did. Yes, but this is a very vanilla poll. I actually spelled poll P-O-L-E. Good job there, buddy. Did you smash the like and subscribe button? Yes, bring a double scoop of justice. And yes, like ice cream is to kill for. So that's the poll for now. We'll check back and see how the poll is doing later on the show. So hit that like and subscribe, take the poll. That's your job. And the super chat rule, as always, is super chats are not required to engage with me. I try to pay as much attention as I can to the chat. We'll see what we can do with the chat. And then what we deal with, we deal with. But the super chats, you're parting with your hard-earned money. So whatever that is, I accept it graciously and gratefully, and guarantees you that I will answer your question, read your question, respond to it, etc., etc. And now, right before we jump in this, there's a couple of announcements to make regarding the Zachariah Anderson case. I spoke to his lawyer, Nicole Muller, earlier today, a little while ago, and she's not going to be able to join us for an interview because it's still under appeal, and my understanding is they're still handling the appeal, so their firm has decided not to do any press or any interviews regarding the case. But the family's been cleared, so I'm working with Saul, his brother, and of course we know Zenith as well, and Zenith, to see if we can get some interviews with them next week. So early next week, I'm hoping that we can have Saul on one day and Zenith on another day if the schedules work out. So we'll be talking to them. That'll be good, and we can hear what it's like to have a family member in that position. So keep your eyes open for that. Hopefully, like I said, early next week, we'll be able to talk to Saul one day and Zenith another day. And coming up for me personally, a week from this Friday is our monthly F-It Friday stream. If you haven't seen an F-It Friday stream on Legal Vices, you are missing out. Hey, Flux, what's up? If you haven't seen an F Friday, you're missing out. Everybody's there. We have a great panel of people, and we just grift for money one day. Lots of money, lots of alcohol, and lots of guests, and it's a hoot. More to come. Invitations are going out. Requests to participate are coming in. We should have the first draft of the guest list by the end of this week. And bring your shekels, bring your dollars, bring your coins and credit cards, and throw money at me a week from this Friday on the F It Friday stream. All right, I guess that's really all we need to take care of before we go. Mods, thank you for being here. Chat, thank you for being here. The Vice Squad is the greatest Vice Squad. It's the only Vice Squad out there, I guess, on the internet, but it is the greatest. It's like I tell my only sister, you're my favorite sister. You are the greatest chat on the internet. Hands down. All righty. There we go. Let's bring it up. And we're going to start the afternoon session. It's the prosecution's case in chief. And in case you're wondering, I should be moved into the other room in some form or fashion by tomorrow night's stream. Internet's all hooked up there in the room. The room's all cleaned out. Just got to move all this crap back in there where it was. So there we go. And share that. Oh, and one thing, never mind. Let's just go. We can talk about one thing later. The prosecution's case in chief begins now. In silence, of course. Officer somebody or another is coming up first. They're bringing him in. It's always officer somebody first. And again, I don't know anything about this trial other than what I...
Welcome. Oh. If you'll come forward to be sworn as a witness where the bailiff is indicated, if you'll face me and raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Corporal. If you'll follow the bailiff now to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step. When you get to the chair at the end, go ahead, have a seat, make yourself comfortable. That microphone in front of you is adjustable.
Is it fully adjustable, though? He always says that microphone in front of you is fully adjustable.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your full name for the record and spell your last name for the court reporter.
My name's Christopher McMurtry. Last name is spelled McMurtry.
How are you employed?
I'm a law enforcement corporal with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office?
16 years.
And you said now you are a corporal, is that correct?
Yes.
I want to talk to you about
He's
January
a corporal after
23rd
16
of
years?
2010. What was your position back on that day?
I was a law enforcement deputy.
Okay. And what was your assignment as a law enforcement deputy back on January 23rd of 2010?
I was a patrol deputy in Apollo Beach, Riverview, Waimama, Ruskin area.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We have to we have to pause him for just 1 second. Gru can wait. We have to pause Gru here for just a second while we bring in the anti-Gru. Valhalla awaits.
How we doing this morning?
We're doing great.
Outstanding.
Valhalla awaits has agreed to be our layman, or as I like to call him, our lame man.
I'm okay with it. Yeah. I'm okay with it.
All right, whatever.
Oh,
So, yep. He said he's our guest today. Valhalla Waits is going to be sitting in on this as we go through the oldie trial. Welcome. Good morning, sir.
Thank you. Good morning to you. Or good evening, I guess. It's late for you, isn't it?
And your headphones are so loud, I can hear them I can hear them picking up through the microphone.
So maybe my mic's loud?
I don't know. Anyway,
I don't
whatever.
know.
There, now I can't hear myself. Ish.
I can
Whatever
turn
you did, it
my-
made it better.
Okay, good. Then we'll leave it alone.
Yeah. All right. So we've got Officer Gru as our first witness here. Christopher McMurtry is his name.
No comment.
All right.
No comment.
And
He looks like a cop, don't he?
he is a corporal after 16 years on the force.
16 years. All right.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Flux. Hey, Flux. Supermod Flux. And by the way, Flux will hopefully be on our F It Friday stream. She's a fixture there, and hopefully Valhalla will be as well. He's quite a fixture there. He usually comes in when I'm 3 sheets to the wind and off my ass drunk to keep things live. Flux says, Mocha Dick Poon XOXO, the mic is fully adjustable. Every trial we do, Flux adds a new tagline on her super
It makes me
chat.
happy. Fox makes me so
the
happy.
mic is fully adjustable is now the new tag for this trial. All right, let's get back into this. Let's hear what Officer Grew has to say. He does have nice eyes, though. Oh, we're going to bring the time
Kinda.
up here. Speed 1.25.
And are all of those cities located here in Hillsborough County?
Yes, they are.
And where are they in reference to Tampa in Hillsborough County?
South County.
Okay, so it's the southern part of Hillsborough County, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's the area you were assigned to?
Yes.
On January 23rd of 2010, did you respond to the location of 4225 Old Highway North?
Old Highway 41.
41, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And where is that located in Hillsborough County?
Ruskin.
And when you arrived, why did you go to that location?
For a shooting call.
Approximately what time did you arrive at that location?
What
Somewhere
state is this
around
in?
6:57.
Florida.
Is that 6:57 at night?
Shocking.
Yeah.
PM in the
Yeah.
evening. Is it still light or dark out at that point?
It was getting dark.
When you arrive at that location, what are your observations when you get there?
There was an ice cream truck in the driveway. And in the driver's seat, there was a male who had been shot, and there was some blood throughout the various spots within the ice cream truck.
Do you remember the color of the ice cream truck? Was it a truck or a van?
Van style.
Did you remember the color of it?
Yeah, I believe it was purple.
And you said that there was a gentleman, I think you said in the driver's seat, is that correct?
Yeah, he was in the front.
And could you tell at that point that he had been injured?
Yeah, it appeared he probably had about 3 gunshot wounds, I believe.
Was he bleeding at that time?
Yes.
Did you, what did you do when you got there?
Ice cream guy
I went to
was
give
robbed of
first aid
$12 and
and
shot
secure the
5
scene.
times.
Fire rescue arrived maybe about a minute after me and took
They
over
spent
first
more
aid.
money on bullets than they
But
got
I
from
really
the
didn't get a
robbery.
very close look at any of his injuries.
And when you say first aid, you mean to the person who was injured in the driver's seat, is that correct?
Yes.
Was that person later identified to be Michael Keetley?
Yes.
Is he present in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you please point him out, describe what he's wearing?
He's sitting over here wearing a white shirt and like a tan cardigan.
Your Honor, may the record reflect he's identified the defendant? Did you, you said that you started to render first aid, is that correct?
Yeah, I went over there. Yes, to assist.
At some point, did you call or did some other deputies call for an ambulance or for fire rescue to respond?
Yes.
How long did it take for fire rescue to get on scene?
They were on scene about a minute after me.
And did they immediately take over the medical treatment of the defendant, Michael Keetley, in this case?
Yes.
What did you do at that point?
That's when I began to survey the scene and establish a crime scene perimeter.
And what would have been the crime scene perimeter?
That's where we put up crime scene tape to prevent anyone to enter or exit without a proper authority.
Was the van that Mr. Keetley was driving, was that parked in front of a residence?
Yeah, it was in a driveway.
Were there some witnesses that were associated with that driveway that were eventually interviewed?
Yes.
Did you conduct any of those interviews?
I don't believe maybe one. I'm not quite certain.
Okay. Maybe one of the neighborhood looking at your report help refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Can I please look at my report?
When was the original shooting?
2010 Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is a retrial. Apparently, the last trial was a hung jury with 10 voting for acquittal and 2 voting for conviction, and they retried it. And right now, the trial is actually in real time on Verdict Watch. So if the verdict comes in, try to keep us as spoiler free as possible. I know we won't. I know we'll figure out what happened before the end of this in about a month.
I'm going to show you a copy
But,
of your
yeah.
report. It starts down there. Can you take a look at that and review it and tell me when you're done reviewing it, read it to yourself when you're done reviewing it, whether or not that refreshes your recollection as to whether or not you interviewed any witnesses in the case?
We Baldies got to stick together. Solidarity.
He's got a little more shine going than you do.
Still, yeah. All of my lotion wore off. No spoilers.
Yes.
All right. He's been refreshed.
Yes.
Was there any of the witnesses back on January 23rd of 2010 that you had interviewed?
Yes, there was one.
Okay. And who was that?
Narcisco Maya.
Okay. And was she a neighbor from that residence where that van was parked?
Yes, from my understanding, yes.
Okay. At some point, was the defendant taken to the hospital?
Yes.
Prior to Mr. Keetley being taken to the hospital, did you put out an alert?
Yes.
What is an alert?
It's like a be on the lookout for the suspects, where we get a description of the suspects and we place it out so other units who are in there, you can try and locate them.
So prior to Mr. Keetley being removed to go to the hospital for treatment for his injuries, did you or other responding deputies obtain a description of the suspects involved in this case?
Yes.
Okay. How many persons were involved?
3.
And did you get a description for each one of those potential suspects, those 3 individuals?
Yes.
Okay. And let's start with, were they all male or female or a combination of that?
It was a combination.
Okay. Tell us what he told you, how many were involved, and what type of sex they were.
From my understanding, it was black female and 2 black males.
Was he able to provide any sort of description of a possible vehicle that may have been associated with these suspects?
Yes. It was a Buick Century, I believe.
And was he able to give any sort of clothing descriptions of any of the perpetrators?
I remember the clothing description of the female was pants, I believe a white shirt, and like I believe a tan jacket.
What about the 2 male subjects?
I'm not remembering their 2 descriptions with their clothing right now.
Did he mention whether or not any of their faces had been covered?
I do remember one of them having a mask.
Okay. Did you remember one of them or both of the male subjects?
A little bit leading there.
Specifically remember at least one male had a mask on.
And as soon as that description, you obtained descriptions from the victim in that case, Mr. Keetley, did you put that information out over the radio?
Yeah, that information goes out over the radio.
And who does that information go to? What is Ebola? You said be on the lookout for. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
And who does that go to? Who's that radio to?
It's related over the radio to other law enforcement officers.
Every time I hear Bolo, I think of Enter the Dragon.
And
Bolo.
depending on where
I think of them ties that were down in Texas.
Officers throughout the county and state.
And is that information that you want to get out as quickly as possible?
Yes.
And was Mr. Keetley, was an in-depth interview done with him on the scene by you?
No.
Why not?
Because fire rescue was giving him medical aid.
At some point in a case like this, would a crime scene detective be assigned to do any sort of follow-up work?
I know that was
crime scene and a detective, yes, both.
Did crime scene investigators go to that scene to start processing the scene and document it?
Yes.
Was that van, Mr. Keetley's van, was that impounded and collected for evidence?
Yes.
Why does he look like a little kid in trouble?
Did you do anything additional during the course of that investigation into the robbery of Mr. Keetley?
Not that I really specifically recall.
I didn't.
Were there other deputies on scene that were also responded to that location?
Yes.
And were they also doing other investigations, such as taking a neighborhood survey?
Yes.
Did you do anything else in furtherance of that case?
No.
Now I want to ask you about I want to fast forward to November 25th of 2010. Were you also working on that day in November, Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Were you working on that day?
Yes.
Okay. Did you respond to 604 Ocean Miss Court?
Yes.
Is that also located here in Hillsborough County?
Yes.
When did you respond to that location?
At approximately, I believe, 2:29 a.m.
That's in the early morning hours, is that correct?
Yes.
And was that the early morning hours of Thanksgiving Day?
I believe it was Thanksgiving Day, yes.
What did you do when you first responded to that area, to 604 Ocean Miss Court?
Ate turkey.
I parked my car, exited, and began to walk up to the scene.
What kind of vehicle were you driving on that day?
I was driving a marked police vehicle.
And how were you dressed?
Similarly today, white shirt, green pants, gun belt, badge.
Okay. Similarly to how you're dressed today?
Yes.
Okay. Complete white shirt with your Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office insignia clearly marked on your shoulders, is that correct?
Yes.
As well as a star on your chest?
Yes.
You responded to that
uniform
location. Did you come into
would have been a
contact
better
with
answer.
individuals the moment that you parked your vehicle?
Yes, there was like a small crowd that approached me.
Without saying whether or not they said anything to you, did they alert you to a specific address?
Yes.
What address did they alert you to?
I believe it's 604 Ocean Mist.
What did you do at that time?
That's when I went approached the porch, and I saw that there were several victims. Based on what I was seeing, I actually started to physically count, and I counted 4 what appeared to be victims of gunshot wounds on the porch, and then another just inside the front door, and I relayed this information to dispatch so we could get additional medical units en route.
So you said you.
He does
saw
look like
what
young
appeared to be
Gru
4
when he's like
victims, is
being
that correct?
picked on
Yes.
and having
And you
a
said it
bad
was
childhood.
gunshot wounds.
That's what it appeared to be.
Can you please describe to the jury what you were seeing that led you
It
to
kinda
believe that
does.
they were gunshot wounds?
There was a large amount of there was blood on the ground. Everybody was screaming in pain. It was very chaotic.
And you said you actually started counting them. Is that correct?
Yes, I remember having to count 1, 2, 3, 4. I paused for a second, evaluated further, and that's when I recognized.
And he
there was
continued to
another
count
person
his
just
minions.
inside the front.
So a total of 5 at that.
Then he
point,
found the
is that correct?
fifth.
Yes.
At that point, were you doing anything on your radio?
Yeah, I was relaying information about what I needed at the scene for medical aid, and then
Oh,
also
what was
trying to
that
get out
dude? The
information
magnet hair guy,
about-
Mr. Willie or whatever the hell it was.
At that point, had any of those individuals that had been injured said anything about what happened while you were up there on the porch counting?
Oh, that's
From my
funny.
understanding, they had been shot with like a shotgun or something similar.
Did they say by who?
Someone dressed in a police costume.
I'm going to show you what's been marked for
Wooly Willy.
identification.
There you
States
go.
Exhibit 5,
Wooly
A,
Willy.
B, and C. Do you recognize these photographs?
I do.
And do those photographs fairly and accurately depict that porch and that address 604 Ocean Mist Court on November 25th of 2010?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we'd introduce into evidence States Exhibit 5, A, B, and C.
Objection? Yes. 5A, States 5A, B, and C is admitted at this time.
Can you see that? I think you also have a monitor, or maybe you don't. I apologize. You can see the giant screen right up there.
Correct.
Can you tell us what this shows in 5A?
That's going to be 604 Ocean Mist, and that's going to be the porch and then the front door where I located everybody at.
And now I'm going to show you 5B. One second.
Okay.
I guess you don't get a whole lot of time to pick up before the evidence photos get taken, huh?
Is that a closer up of that Ocean Mist address 604 Ocean Mist Court as well as the porch?
Yes, exactly.
And you had said that there were 4 that were located on that porch. Is that correct?
Yeah, I remember before being on that porch. Correct.
And where was the 5th person?
Just inside that front door there.
Okay, and kind of I'm pointing to the center of the door. The door is open. He was located, you said, just inside that doorway. Is that correct?
Yes.
At some point, was there another victim? Were you alerted to the presence of another victim?
Yes.
Can you tell us how that occurred?
I got alerted. Another victim just down the street, and I went over there.
Okay. And when you went down the
that's
street, can you tell us what you observed or who you came into contact with?
I came in contact with another deputy, Deputy Velasquez, and I'm not sure who the victim was.
Did that victim appear to have any sort of injury?
I don't recall.
Did you do anything with regards to that particular victim?
No.
I want to go back to that porchway. At some point, did you assist in putting up crime scene tape, securing the scene?
Yes, I did.
Prior to you being able to do that, had there been additional deputies up on that porch?
Yes, there were several deputies that arrived to assist me.
Had you been up on that porch?
Yes.
Had fire rescue and medical personnel been up on that porch?
Yes, absolutely.
Had there been others that had been in the home or people that you first made contact with who had at one time been on the porch?
Yes, I believe so.
At some point, you secured the scene, is that correct, with the assistance of other deputies from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
And after the scene is secured and victims are removed, is anyone else allowed to then go up on that porch until it has all been processed?
No.
How long did it take for fire rescue to respond after you put out that initial alert?
They responded very quickly, within minutes.
And eventually, were there victims that had been removed from the porch,
Yes.
as well as the victim from the house?
Yes.
From my
Andrew,
understanding-
yes.
Were all of the victims removed except for one?
Yes, from my understanding, I believe so.
We need to give him some hair.
That's awesome.
Were you the first
That's so
responding
awesome.
Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office unit to respond?
To this scene?
Yes.
Yes, I arrived on first, and then everyone arrived
Magnetic
after me.
personality.
Can you remember approximately how many law enforcement officers, Hillsborough County Sheriff's deputies responded to that scene?
In total,
Just an estimate.
Several. If I had more than 10,
And you were in a marked vehicle, is that correct?
yes,
Were there other deputies that had responded in marked vehicles?
yes.
Were all of the law enforcement officers that responded, were they with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office?
From my understanding, I believe so. Yes.
That was within your jurisdiction, is that correct? This on location 604 Ocean Miss Court, that was within the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office jurisdiction.
Yes.
Your Honor, may I have one moment?
You're a loud typer.
Ask the witness.
All right.
Yes, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Corporal.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to walk you through the two different incidents that you just described with Miss Doherty and separate it the same way so we can make sure that we're following along, okay?
Okay.
So I want to start with January 2010. You arrived on scene where you learned Michael Keetley was shot and robbed, correct?
Yes.
And I believe you mentioned that upon arrival, very shortly after, within minutes, Mr. Keetley was taken to the hospital.
Yes.
At that time,
She sounds
you were
like
able
AOC
to
at
observe
this
the
speed.
purple ice cream truck
Yes.
and all the blood within, correct?
Yes.
And it was obvious to you, even in that brief interaction, that he had multiple gunshot wounds.
Yes.
I believe that you previously testified you were able to obtain a description. However, that description was not given to you directly by Mr. Keetley, correct?
I'm not sure if it was directly from him or from a fellow officer.
Okay. But within that short time, that was the only opportunity you had with Mr. Keetley, correct?
Yes.
Throughout your investigation, you also were able to determine that the robbery itself occurred in a different location, correct?
Yeah, it was a few houses down, from my understanding.
A short distance, but you were able to go and evaluate that scene just the same as you did where the ice cream truck was, correct?
Correct.
And in evaluating that scene, you were able to observe a shell casing, correct?
Yes.
And blood that was outside of the ice cream truck, even though Mr. Keetley was found within.
Yes.
And obviously, through your training and your experience, whenever you find something unusual, especially something that could potentially connect to a crime scene, you point it out to fellow officers, crime scene techs for collection, correct?
Yes.
And you did so in this case.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but at that point, that concluded your investigation, correct?
For the most part, yes.
So I want to move to the November 2010 shooting. You were a patrol deputy in District 4, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to show you what I've pre-marked as Defense Exhibit 1.
I can kind of see the Ricky Lake thing.
Thank you. You recognize that area?
For all of you old people in the audience.
And the jurisdiction for District 4.
Yes, I'm familiar with all this area.
Are you able to see the District 4 office and, again, the Ruskin area in which it encompasses?
Some of the Ruskin area, yes.
Does that fairly and accurately depict that area?
I think we need to
District 4,
slow her
that portion
down.
of
She's
District 4 has
she's
jurisdiction.
talking
might
really
need to.
fast.
And if I may
She's
first
so
move into
fast.
evidence, Defense Exhibit number 1.
Is there any objection to defense one?
No objection, Judge.
Defense one will be admitted at this time.
And Your Honor, if I may also pull the large screen to display that exhibit.
You may. Are you going to need the witness to step down where?
Yes, Your Honor, it might be better once we move it so that there's no cords in this area.
She still kind of sounds like AOC.
Is that okay, Your Honor?
It's okay with me. Yes.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
I just want to make sure that the jury can see the witness, though.
Yes, Your Honor, I
Ouch.
would ask the witness to step down.
All right.
On
He
this side,
said
I
just
can
before he
get out of the way.
died of autoerotic
That's- yeah, that's
asphyxiation.
And Corporal, this is the photo. I
Pinch and
took.
zoom, pinch and
I'm
zoom.
able to zoom it up.
She
If
looks
you
like
could
Ricky
just
Lake a
point-
lot.
And let me, I don't
A
mean to
little
interrupt
bit.
you, but there is
A
a
little
yardstick
bit.
up here that we often use as a pointer, if that's of any assistance.
Absolutely. Thank you. If you could please point, and if needed, I can zoom it in for you as well. District 4. And that was the office in which you worked at the time, and this was the jurisdiction of District 4 in the Ruskin Mom area, correct?
Yes.
And then just across the street, there was at that time a gas station. At that time, it was a racetrack, correct?
Yes, right here.
within close proximity, that was an area in which patrol deputies would often wait while on patrol, correct?
Yeah, I would go there occasionally.
Given the close proximity.
Yes.
It's not labeled on the map specifically, however, there are other local businesses on that. I believe it's within East College Ave and Sun City, correct?
Yes.
And going back to the first incident, which I described in January,
Yes.
in which Mr. KEETLEY was robbed and shot. That is not pictured on this map, correct?
That is correct.
Could you point to the general area in which that would have been?
It would have been over in this general
Chappie,
area
no.
somewhere.
So southwest
Yes.
of the map. Okay. And then can you please point to the area in
That's
which you
horrible.
arrived for the November 2010 shooting?
Oh, that's funny.
Would have been here on the court.
And that's where 604 Ocean Mist Court is, correct?
Yes.
All right, you can have a seat. Thank you.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, you and Flux just need to chill. Get a mop, you two.
It makes me feel less dirty when Indigo's in chat. I feel way better about some of the things I say.
So again, on November 25th of 2010, you were working your usual shift when you got a call to the shooting, correct?
Yes.
I know you said it was early morning hours. Do you remember what time it was?
I arrived there at approximately 2:29, I believe. 2:29 a.m.
Approximately 2:29.
Yeah.
Approximately.
Yes.
And the call indicated that this was a multiple victim shooting, correct?
That's the way I understood it.
And you were familiar to this area of Ocean Mist Court prior to this call, correct?
Yes.
You were aware of local drug activity,
Yes.
and you are aware that this is an area that has gang activity as well, correct?
Yes.
And given this information, just like any call to service, especially when a shooting is involved, you're using everything that you know when you're approaching the scene.
Yes. You use your experience and training.
And obviously, upon arrival, you're assessing for officer safety and potentially the other people that are around, correct?
Yes.
And when you arrive on scene, you arrive first. Is that correct?
Yes. I arrived first.
And it is extremely dark. I know that there was a photo that was presented by the prosecution, but that's not what it looked like when you arrived, correct?
There's the occasional street light in the area, but it is darker.
So maybe one street light, but that photo does not depict how it looked upon your observation, because that photo has illuminated lights, correct?
Yeah, that photo does have illumination.
So whenever crime scene or other deputies are taking photos, especially in the middle of the night, they're going to have large illumination in order to capture what you would be able to see, correct?
Yes, they use lights to illuminate that area.
But before those lights come on, dark.
Yeah, it was darker than those photos. Yes.
So dark that you're not able to see everything until you get close, correct?
Depends. I also used my flashlight.
Okay, in this case, it was so dark you had to use your flashlight?
Yeah, I definitely used my flashlight at some points.
And upon arrival, a crowd of people approached you to advise that there had been a shooting, correct?
Yes.
I know you mentioned that there was a description in your previous testimony that you obtained, but this description you obtained was from that crowd of people, not the victims, correct?
You guys are on fire today.
Of what had happened?
Of what had happened, who this person looked like. This was a description you received from the crowd of people that approached your vehicle.
It was a combination of everybody involved, if I remember correctly.
Oh, do you recall taking a deposition in this case?
Yes.
And the deposition that you took was on August 29th, 2011.
Sounds correct.
At the state attorney's office, defense attorneys, prosecution are present, and you're placed under oath, correct?
Yes.
A year later.
They didn't take the deposition
And again,
until a
today's
year
testimony
after?
was that you received
Yeah.
this description from the victims on the porch,
8 months.
Wow.
9 months.
correct?
I believe that's what it said. Yes.
Okay, and for the record, this is page 10, line 15, starting at line 14. You were asked, okay, and then what happened? You answered, I tried getting a brief description of what happened. That's when I learned that the suspect was possibly dressed in a police costume, armed with what was described almost to be like a shotgun. Question, who were you getting this description from? Answer, from all the people standing around, there was a large crowd gathering.
Okay.
Do you remember saying that?
That sounds accurate.
And you also mentioned that this scene was chaotic.
It was.
So obviously you're getting a lot of information from a lot of different people.
Yes.
And at this time, your goal, your focus isn't preserving evidence. It's assessing the scene, correct?
My first goal is to make the scene safe.
Officer safety, that was
Nice
my
powder
next
blast.
thing. Officer safety and safety for those around you, correct?
Yes.
And therefore, you're not really tiptoeing around the area. You're managing what you deem to be most important in that moment, correct?
Stupid movie.
Yes.
It was so stupid.
If I may have a moment, Your Honor.
You can't say it's powder all grown up.
Were you ready?
Yes, briefly. When the defense counsel asked you about your prior deposition and who were some of the people that in that crowd giving you that information, did you also say that the victims were also present and yelling information at you?
Yes, I believe so.
I'd be yelling too.
And
Somebody
as
just
far
shot me.
as would you describe that scene as somewhat chaotic?
Yes.
And was your first priority at that time getting medical attention to those victims?
Yes.
Were there how would you describe their injuries at that point?
Severe.
And were there other sheriff's deputies that were there as well, assisting you in that investigation?
Absolutely.
And after ambulance had responded, were you then able to then turn your attention to securing the crime scene?
Yes.
Prior to securing the crime scene, what had been your focus?
To make the scene safe and provide first aid.
I have nothing further to add.
Would this be released or subject to recall?
He may be released.
And by the defense, released or subject to recall?
Oh, subject to recall, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down, but not released at this time.
He
No
looks
need for
like
you to remain outside though today, correct?
he looks like he's just been in prison for like 12 years and hasn't seen
Call your
sun.
next witness.
The state calls retired Detective Nolan.
Retired Detective Nolan.
Do we know this judge?
Yeah, this is the judge that did the Stabby McStab face case in Florida, the Terry. Matthew Terry.
There you go.
And also did another one before Terry. But yeah, it's Terry's one we did. All right. Oh, God, chat. You guys are just insane today. What is wrong with you? Thank you so super much to Crinny for getting us off on the super chat trail again. Getting us off the random who he looks like chat and getting some cash. I need like a cha-ching thing here for. I used to do like the clip from it's like a 9-second clip. The toss a coin to your Witcher from The Witcher, but every time I played that 9-second clip, they would copyright claim me
For 9 seconds, really?
Yeah. So Crinny for the $10 super chat. Thank you so much for the generosity. Hung jury should count as not guilty because there is clearly a reasonable doubt if the whole jury can't agree on guilty. You can't change my mind. You know what? I completely agree with you. And it's there's places where you don't need a unanimous verdict to convict or to acquit. But I think you should be required to have a unanimous verdict for a guilty verdict, and any hung jury I think should be an acquittal. And I completely agree with that. Because clearly, as you have said, it's a reasonable doubt if you can't even get 12 people to agree on what happened. I have nothing to say about that other than I would go one step further and require guilty verdicts to have unanimous decision. Wow,
that's kind of
not guilty verdicts
without a reasonable doubt means, right? That's kind of how I would interpret that anyway. If 10 of 12 people had not guilty, then there's clearly some doubt.
And Flux says Asian Ursula is the DA. Could be Flux. All right. Thank you so much for the super. Swan Lacey's Legal Advice. Will Danny be one of your guests on Friday? Friday we'll have the trial here in the morning, and then in the evening, hopefully, Flux, Danny, and I will be doing an unexplained stream about exploring caves. We'll be talking about unexplained events in caves. So yes, hopefully Danny will be able to join for that, because she was the one that suggested that she was the one that brought up caves last time. All right, so there we go. Let's get on with our next witness.
There's a dirty joke there, but I'm going to leave it alone.
Yep.
It's too early.
Good for you.
Too
Wise
early.
choice. It's always too early for that joke you were going to make.
Come. Wherever you're comfortable, if you'll face me and raise your right hand to be sworn as a witness. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Thank you. You'll follow the bailiff to the ramp that leads up.
Is the microphone fully adjustable?
Watch your step. Go ahead and have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. That microphone in front of you adjusts.
Good, thank you.
Your seat.
Please state your full name for the record.
Roy Nolan. I go by Ron.
Good Lord.
Did you used to work for the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office?
What the hell is his name?
When-
Roy goes by Ron?
June 25th of 2010.
I heard Ron.
Prior to retiring in June of 2010, how long had you worked for the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office?
28 years.
I'm sorry.
28 years.
28 years. When you were working in 2010, what was your position and what unit had
Missionary.
you been assigned
sorry.
to?
I worked the Criminal Investigation Division, the robbery unit.
And I want to ask you specifically about a robbery involving the victim, Michael KEETLEY, that occurred
I like his
January
tie.
3rd of 2010. Are you familiar with that investigation?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you assigned to conduct follow-up investigation as a case detective?
Yes, ma'am.
I think that's how some of them do it.
Assigned as that case detective in the robbery investigation involving the victim, Michael KEETLEY.
January the 25th, 2010.
So that would have been approximately about 2 days after the offense. Is that
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
As part of your investigation as a case detective, did you review and have access to all of the police reports of the first responding deputies?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that something that you looked at in order to conduct your follow-up investigation?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you yourself interview the victim in that case, Michael KEETLEY?
Yes, ma'am.
When did that interview occur?
The next day would be the 26th of January at Temple General Hospital.
And is Michael KEETLEY, is he present in the courtroom today?
Diabetes.
Can you point him out and describe what he's wearing?
Interruption, Judge. For the record, we would stipulate that this witness can in fact identify Michael KEETLEY.
Well,
Okay,
that's
that took
fine.
longer than just
Stipulate
letting him
to,
identify him.
Do you accept the stipulation that he's
Yes,
identified
Judge.
him? All right.
That's fine, Judge.
All right.
And so a person that you became aware of was named Michael KEETLEY. You met with him at the Tampa General Hospital. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm sorry, what day did you meet with him?
26th of January, 2010.
When you met with him, how was he doing at that point?
He was in the hospital bed. I interviewed him. He had no problem answering questions.
Jack, lack of foundation.
Hold on. With him, he was answering my questions.
Dia's
Rephrase.
got something weird
When
going
you
on with her
were
neck. I don't know if she just like
interviewing
has it
Mr.
tilted or.
KEETLEY, did he appear to understand the
What
questions
neck?
that you were asking him?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he appear lucid?
No, ma'am.
Ooh, questioned him when he wasn't
He did not
lucid?
appear to be lucid.
She's medicated.
He had no problem answering my questions. I mean, he was coherent.
All right, maybe I asked it incorrectly.
Okay.
Did he appear to be coherent?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, he misspoke.
And when you were interviewing him, did you explain to him why you were there?
That happens when you're
And I was
87
case
years old.
detective going to be investigating his case, the robbery.
Was Mr. KEETLEY, was he able to provide you with a detailed statement at that time as to what happened to him back on January 23rd of 2010?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did he tell you?
You want the whole statement or you just want a synopsis?
Give us a synopsis and then I'll ask you some more detailed questions.
Okay. Synopsis was he was selling ice cream out of the ice cream truck in the area of known as Old Sun City, which is south of Ruskin, Florida. He noticed the car had pulled up behind him, honking the horn. So he stopped, thinking they wanted to buy some ice cream. He stated a light-skinned black female, very well dressed, got out and asked him how much was a soda. So he told him that at that time he noticed that a black male had gotten into his truck, armed with a weapon, covered, face was covered, and had knit gloves. Didn't notice another black male. And he also had a gun, also had his face covered, wearing knit gloves. He asked him not to steal his truck. He said, "We're not there to steal your truck." One of them, the black male, had shot him, and then they fled in what he described as a Skylark or Buick Century. And they went, witnesses said they went south on Highway 41 towards Manatee County.
So he has described 3 suspects, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
One of them was a black female.
Yes, ma'am.
Jack leading testifying.
I'll say don't lead the witness.
The information that Mr. KEETLEY provided to you in the hospital, did you have the opportunity to also review description information that he provided to first responders?
That's correct.
Was it consistent?
Yes, ma'am.
Did an alert go out, a BOLO, a be on the lookout, go out immediately after the crime had been taken place on January 23rd of 2010?
There was a
Jack, may we proceed?
Wow, that was quick. All right. Just fixing his name here. There we go. Because Cloudy Electrons gave us his proper name. So, all right. There's a listening to Insane Clown Posse. That's so he can hear the what they're saying at the bench. Because he's the defense. He has every right to hear what they're talking about there. And I like the way this court does this. They did it with the Terry trial too. He's listening in on what they're saying up there at the bench.
And it's still keeping the jury out of the loop. It's good.
Yep.
Retired Detective Nolan, I believe I asked you whether or not you had previously familiarized yourself with the first responding reports that were done.
You should root for justice. Don't root for anybody.
Mr. KEETLEY, did you acquaint yourself and review all of
Good answer, Jeff.
that were done by the first responding deputies?
Yes, ma'am.
And you yourself conducted your own detailed interview of Mr. KEETLEY at the hospital. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you review the information, the initial descriptions that Mr. KEETLEY provided to those first responders?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Did you see whether or not a be on the lookout, BOLO, as what it's commonly referred to, was put out as an alert by those first responding deputies?
I don't remember if they put out an alert. I don't remember that.
Okay. Did you yourself put out an alert?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What type of alert did you put out?
I put out a written alert, which is distributed
Life
to what we call the Zone 5, which is 5 counties. And they get our alerts. I also put out a statewide alert through our communications.
Prior to putting out your alert to this 5 county wide
Zone 5.
Zone 5,
Falling and I can't
you
get
put
up.
in the descriptions that were provided by Mr. KEETLEY.
Yes.
And I want to take this one description at a time. Let's start with the black female. What was the description provided by Mr. KEETLEY and provided in your alert to the other zones, those 5 counties?
Yes, ma'am. The black female was described as a black female.
A black female was described as a black female.
Weighing approximately 200 pounds with a large belt. She had a medium complexion, shoulder length, curly black hair, and brown eyes. Well,
yes, if she was 200 pounds, of course she had a large belt.
And a white t-shirt.
And was all of that information provided to you from Mr. KEETLEY?
When I interviewed him, I had a written alert, and I went over the alert with him, and he agreed to what I had in the alert.
Now I want to ask about the 2 black male suspects. What was the description of the person that he believed was the shooter, the one with the gun?
Well, they both had guns.
They both had guns.
Okay. The second suspect, the shooter, was described as a black male, 20 to 25 years of age, 5'10", 165 pounds, with a thin build. He was medium complexion, brown eyes. He's wearing a black t-shirt, black ski
It's hard
mask,
to
and
read. You're not supposed to be
gloves.
reading it.
And what about the third subject, the third armed black male subject?
The suspect was described as a black male, unknown age, 5'7" in height, weighing approximately 215 pounds, with a large belt. He had a medium complexion, brown eyes. He was last seen wearing blue-green flannel shirt and a black ski mask.
Did your alert also contain details about the vehicle that they were seen in?
Yes, ma'am. The vehicle was described as a 1990s white.
Let me read some more.
In the debtor's report, he also said Skylark, 4-door with dark tinted windows and 2 small donut spare tires. And I got a photograph of a car similar, and I put that in the alert.
And you said that that was distributed to multiple counties. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
As your role as a follow-up investigator, what else did you do in this particular case?
I investigated since the car was seen fleeing south on 41. I contacted the Palmetto Police Department, Manatee County Sheriff's Office to see if they had any similar robberies, which turned negative. They were negative.
What else did you do in this case?
I received calls from Mr. KEETLEY about some information that he received.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about that in a second.
Okay.
Was there any sort of latent investigation, fingerprints, DNA, stuff of that nature that was done in this case?
Yes, ma'am. They're all negative.
And in this case, would the
4 doors, more horse.
description of these both armed men wearing gloves, would that be surprising for you as to negative for fingerprints?
Yes, correct.
Other than the victim that was bleeding, were there any descriptions ever given of any of those black males that entered into his van of being injured in any way?
No, ma'am.
Now I want to talk to you about
2010 Thanksgiving.
Those phone conversations. Do you remember approximately how many times you received some phone calls from Mr. KEETLEY after your initial interview of him in the hospital on January 26th and 27th?
There was approximately 3 to 4 phone calls.
Tell us about those 3 to 4 phone calls that you received.
He would call me and tell me that during his route selling ice cream, that the word on the street, they were Mexican males who did the robbery who shot him.
I want to stop you right there. He, at that point, told you that he was back working. Is that correct? He's back on his ice cream route?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when he said that word on the street, was he able to ever provide you with a witness for you to talk to when he called you?
No, ma'am.
Other than word on the street, he provided you with no eyewitness?
Object, leading, counsel testifying.
Rephrase it.
Based on the phone conversations that you had with Mr. KEETLEY, were you ever provided with an eyewitness that you could actually interview?
No, ma'am.
Were you actually provided with a witness that overheard Mr. KEETLEY making statements?
No, ma'am.
Did he ever give you the name of a witness and an address?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever ask him? That's the question.
Now, you said that he had, at that point, when he was talking about the word on the street, that he had said, what was the ethnic background of the people who had robbed him? What was the word on the street?
Mexican males.
Did you express any concern with him once he said that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what did you state to him at that
I
point?
told Mr. KEETLEY that changing the description of the suspects will most likely hurt this case. Since you gave me black males and a black female, now you're telling me the Mexican males.
Did at any point in any of those conversations, did Mr. KEETLEY indicate to you that he in fact wanted to change his description of who was involved in his case?
I don't know if he did or not, ma'am.
Well, he just did.
Would you have changed, would you have made a supplement to your police report if the victim in a case had stated that he wanted to change the description?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's
Did
not
you
the
do that in this
penguin.
case?
Stop.
Okay. And you said that there were how many
That's
phone
horrible.
conversations?
Possibly 3 to 4.
3 to 4. And any of those 4 conversations, did he provide you with the name of an actual witness for you to talk to?
No, ma'am.
Based on those 3 to 4 conversations that he had with you, was there anything for you to be able to follow up with any sort of latent investigation?
He might have gave me a couple of nicknames, which I did some follow-up, but the nicknames are hard to find the real person who the nickname belongs to. If a person comes in contact with law enforcement and they give a nickname and the real name, that information is put into the computer. So if I run a nickname, that name is going to pop up. None of the names that he gave me, and I don't remember who they were, never came up.
Okay. And so you don't remember what those nicknames were, is that correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you write any sort of supplement to document what those nicknames were?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Would you have done that if you had gotten anything?
You think those 2 women in the gallery are related to her?
Hmm.
They
Your
got
Honor, this time you
similar
pass the witness.
features.
Good afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon, sir.
Is it all right if I just call you detective instead of retired detective?
And did you see the movie theater popcorn murder case?
All right, so let's start with this. Did I hear you
Yeah,
say you
some of it.
retired when?
He was the defense lawyer for that case.
All right, so you're going to retire
Oh.
6 months after this investigation begins. Is that
That's
right?
correct. Yes, sir.
He won that case, didn't he?
Last day
Yes.
of your career in January. You had a fixed retirement date, didn't you?
I didn't make the final decision until after January.
Right. So this case, when you left, was still open.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's see if we've got the groundwork correct. This event occurs on January 23rd.
Yes, sir.
You get notified. I'm going to say you, Detective Nolan, you get notified on the 25th.
I was assigned the case on 25th.
Typically, how this works is, as is the case, then Deputy McMurtry, he's the deputy that responds, right?
Yes, sir.
So typically, a call like this goes out, road deputies or uniformed deputies will respond first, right?
Yes, sir.
And given the circumstances of case that may involve the need for a crime scene detective to come out
Yes, sir.
and crime scene technicians to come out,
Yes, sir.
and you are aware that Mr. Keetley was shot more than once, right?
Yes, sir.
How many times was he shot?
I think 3 times.
Where was he shot?
In the stomach, the chest area.
Where else?
That's all I remember. The stomach area. Stomach area.
Stomach area? What about the leg?
That's what the media
I don't
called
remember
it.
that.
What about a hand?
The popcorn
Don't
movie.
remember that.
What
Movie
was the nature of his
popcorn murder.
injuries?
Gunshot wound.
Okay.
Yep.
I got it. But when he went to the hospital, did he go to surgery?
I don't know if he did or not.
Okay. You talked to him on the 26th.
Yes, sir.
And you told us that, first you said he wasn't lucid, but then I think maybe you misunderstood the question. You
Right.
said he was coherent, right?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware that he had a major surgery on January 24th?
I don't remember that.
Do you know the name of the doctor who did his surgery?
No, sir.
Do you know the extent of his injuries? How severe? Whether they were permanent?
No, sir.
What do you specifically remember when you were in the hospital room when you saw him about his bandaging or his dressing?
I don't understand what they're asking me.
Well, he was still in the hospital, yes?
Yes.
All right. Did you talk to, I know you say you didn't talk to the doctor, or I think I heard you say you did not talk to the doctor.
That's
Did I get
correct.
that correct?
That's correct.
Did you talk to any medical personnel?
No, no, sir.
Did you see or check to see whether he was under the influence of any medication such as morphine or anything else?
No, sir.
So when you talked to him, you made your own independent determination that he was lucid and coherent, right?
Correct.
Okay. What time of day was this that you talked to him?
Refer to my report, please.
Wow. Pretty solid.
Probably not the best time to question somebody when they're all hopped up on opiates.
Well, he doesn't know because he didn't check. Dumbass. That was a bad move on his part.
It
Wow.
wasn't good.
9:30 9:30 a.m.
Okay. Was anybody else with you?
As far as police?
Yes, sir.
That's it.
Just you?
Full loan
Did you
trade.
record this interview?
No, sir.
How long did this interview last?
15, 20 minutes maybe?
Okay. When you put an interview together, there are two ways generally that I'm familiar with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's does it. One is a recorded interview, right?
Correct.
And Hillsborough County Sheriffs have transcriptions who will then put a transcript together. This is the question you asked, this is the answer,
That's
right?
correct.
And that is a way to document exactly what a particular witness, suspect, or in this case, victim says, right?
Yes, sir.
We would agree that Michael Keetley was a victim.
That's correct.
We would agree that a gunshot wound can be a very serious injury.
Yes, sir.
Multiple gunshot wounds.
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with the phrase comminuted injury or comminuted break?
No, sir.
Okay. So then you would not be aware that's where a bone breaks in multiple places?
I wouldn't know that, no.
Okay. If you talked to Dr. Halpern, you would have learned that he would have had.
Objection, Your Honor.
That's sustained. Okay. We can agree you didn't talk to Dr. Halpern to see the extent of the injuries.
That's correct.
Okay. And what procedures he had undergone, right?
That's correct.
When was he released from the hospital?
I don't know that.
You didn't follow up on that?
I didn't follow him being released, no, sir.
You didn't follow up on his medical records?
No, sir.
Can we agree that this would be a case that could involve something called great bodily harm or serious bodily injury? You're familiar with that in criminal law, right?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
Somebody's injured, it could be near death or, like you said, great bodily injury.
Did Michael Keetley have great bodily injury?
I guess he did, yes, sir.
I'm not asking you to guess, please.
Okay.
Do you know if he had great bodily injury?
I'd say so.
No, sir.
Do you know now?
After you told me, yes, sir.
I didn't tell you, I asked a question.
Objection, Your Honor. His answer is what his answer is, Judge.
I asked you a question. I want to know what you know.
I didn't know he had great bodily injury. No, sir.
You did not know that, right?
Correct.
That would be serious to know, right?
I guess so, yes, sir.
Well, if someone is under the influence of medication, or someone has serious bodily injury, that could affect the quality of the statement they give. Would you agree with me on that?
Yes, sir.
All right? So someone could be answering questions or giving you information, but it may or may not be good and accurate information. Would you agree with me on that?
Yes.
Okay? And so before you got the statement from Michael Keetley, you did not check his medication status, right?
I don't remember if I did or not.
Okay? And you don't remember if you checked what his great bodily injury or other great bodily harm, serious bodily injury or great bodily harm status is,
No,
correct?
sir. No, sir.
So he gave you descriptions, right?
Yes, sir.
Each of these people, and he uses the phrase black,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And we use that in society, white, black, and Hispanic, right?
Yes, sir.
But you would agree with me that we also use the phrase when we talk about Hispanic people, about people who are Hispanic black or Hispanic white, right?
Yes, sir.
That much like all of us, we have different pigmentation, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay? Even people who would be classified as white, some are darker brown than others, right?
Yes.
So when he says that these were black,
Again, we no spoilers. We'll find out what the verdict is eventually. But when it comes in, please nobody mention what it is.
now, as far as the
But
two
verdict,
people
we'll talk
who
about this
did
later.
to him, he only saw their eyes. Is that correct?
He had a mask on. Yes, sir. That's
Correct. They had a mask on, right?
Yes, sir.
So when he's telling you it's a black male, it could have also been an Hispanic black male, right?
I'm just going to what he told me with black males.
I understand what he told you.
Yes,
But you agree that oftentimes you have to follow up on information that victims or witnesses tell you, right?
That's correct.
Oftentimes victims or witnesses can tell you things and they can be honest in their attempt, but they can tell you things that are incorrect, right?
Yes, sir.
Right? So we're not certainly going to necessarily accept something that comes from a victim or a witness just because they say it, right? You have to follow up on it, right?
Well, I followed up. I did an investigation and I put in what he told me were black males. Yes, sir.
5'10", 165 pounds. That was one of them, apparently, right? The other was 5'7", about 250 pounds, right?
It's a big boy.
15 pounds?
15, 1-5, sorry. You better get in there. 215. Got it?
Yes.
You agree with me on that?
Yes, sir.
Now, you did say that you requested late drink testing, right? Now, I think that it was not a surprise to have a negative result because these people who did this armed robbery and shooting, they were wearing gloves apparently.
Yes, sir.
And we would not generally expect to have gloves, right?
That's correct.
Now, you said that there was no indication that either of these people bled.
That's correct.
And I say either of these people are the victim, right?
Yes, sir.
But you are aware because you did check the report, right?
Yes, sir.
And did you actually speak to the Deputy McMurtry?
No, sir.
You just read his report?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you this? I mentioned the one way we can get a statement. The other way, aside from the transcribed interview, which is verbatim, is where you, as an officer,
All right, we're gonna bump the volume up here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it just dropped all of a sudden.
right?
Yes, sir.
And it's a memory aid, right?
It's a what, sir?
It's a memory aid. You would write it in your report so that you would get the highlights of what somebody told you,
Yes.
right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It doesn't certainly capture the question and the answer that you ask of a witness. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
And so when Michael Keetley is giving you statements back in January of 2010, which you were relying on in February and March and June, all the way to your retirement, was the summary that you gave him from when he was in the hospital,
Yes, sir.
with injuries that you cannot recall,
No, sir.
with a presentation that you cannot tell, right?
What do you mean by presentation?
Okay. Was he bandaged up anywhere?
Yes, he was.
Where was he bandaged?
I remember one bandage being on the stomach area.
Okay. What about his hands?
I didn't see any bandage on him. I don't remember seeing a bandage.
Okay, that's what I want to check. Are you telling this jury there were no bandages on his hands, or are you telling this jury that you do not recall?
I don't recall.
All right, so that tells me that his hand or hands could have been bandaged, but you would not recall that, right?
Correct.
You could recall that if you wrote that down on your report, right?
Yes, sir.
And you did not write down on your report.
That's
That's
correct.
right.
That's right.
I think we've established you don't recall when he got out of the hospital, right?
That's correct.
Where did he go live?
I don't know that.
Okay, where was he living before?
I don't know that.
Was he living on his own?
I don't know that.
As a result of being released, did he have to go live with anybody?
I don't know that.
Did he have to be taken care of in any way?
I don't know that.
You said that he called you 3 or 4 times.
That's correct.
When was the first call?
I don't know how long after the initial interview these calls were made.
Okay. When was the first call made?
I don't recall.
When was the second call?
I don't recall.
Do you recall any date?
Recall anything.
The fact is,
In all fairness, this was a decade ago.
concerned or motivated victim, right?
Yes, sir.
He wanted you
But he didn't write any of these notes down, apparently.
and you would
Oh
want to.
no, my headphones are about to die.
Right? Absolutely. In fact, when you leave this department in June 2010, you're going to pass that off to another detective, right?
It was given to another detective, yes.
What's his name or her name?
Jason Himmel?
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 Okay. Is he still with the agency?
I believe so.
Okay. And when you gave the investigation to Himmel, was Detective Himmel briefed on what you knew?
I didn't brief him. I was already gone when he was assigned the case, already retired.
Did you brief anybody before you left?
No, sir.
Was it just a file on the case that someone would pick up?
It was a file assigned to another detective, yes.
Did you tell Michael Keatley you were leaving the agency?
No, sir.
Did you tell him someone else was going to have to take on this case?
No, sir.
You did not document a single phone call that you and Michael Keatley had.
No, sir.
How many times did you call Michael Keatley?
I didn't.
So can I make sure that we know that what you are in this case is the lead detective?
That's correct.
And lead detective is a very standard terminology in the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, right?
Yes, sir.
Or is it? Lead detective is the man who is in charge, yes?
Yes, sir.
And now that doesn't mean it's only your one, right?
Right.
There are other detectives. You were in the major crimes, or what they call it, violent crimes at that time?
Criminal Investigation Robbery Unit.
Okay. They change all the time over the years. Whatever the name of it was at that time, robberies and crimes of violence such as this were what you were doing.
Yes,
And you were certainly not the only detective in Hillsborough County to do that, right?
that's correct.
At that point in time in 2010, was it you had a unit working together
Yes.
with 8, 9, 10? I have the
I
number.
think it was 7 to 8 people at the
All
time.
right. So you, Detective Nolan, get a case. Nothing's going to prevent you from going to Detective Himmel, Detective Jones, or whoever to do what we call conference or discuss a case, right?
Okay, what was the question?
Yeah, let me put it to you better. You have the ability, if you want, to go to any other detective in your unit and say, hey, got this case. Can I talk to you about it? Can I get some ideas how to further investigate?
Yes.
All right. This is my
And
first attempt at altering the volume on this.
maybe not one of this size. Several cases, there will actually be someone who is assigned as a second or an assist, right? Do they still do that
Not
back in
usually.
2010?
Not usually. I was
Okay.
never assigned a second person.
Well, let me put it to you this way. When you have things that can be done in an investigation, it doesn't necessarily always have to be done by you. Is
That's
that right?
correct. That's correct.
For example, taking something to FDL, right?
Correct.
All right. What happens is when you get evidence in cases, evidence can be sent to FDL, right?
That's correct.
Sometimes they've got a fingerprint unit over there, but Hillsborough County Sheriff has their own, right?
That's correct.
And so typically you're not going to send anything over to FDLE related to fingerprints, right?
That's correct.
But internally, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office has nothing at all with DNA, right?
That's correct.
All right. That has to be shipped out to FDLE.
Correct.
Let me talk to you about this idea here. When we talk about FDLE, a detective may be running evidence out in other cases and can take yours on a run, right?
That's correct.
Okay. That would be what we call an assist, right?
Yes, sir.
Also, when you're interviewing people, oftentimes you will have an assist or a second with you, right?
Yes, sir.
Particularly, especially with a suspect, right?
That's right.
And that is so that when you're asking questions and you're talking to somebody, it's potential that you miss something, right?
Yes, sir.
That the other detective can say, hey, can we go outside? I think you need to ask 1, 2, 3, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So an assist can be very valuable, right?
Yes, sir.
An assist may not be in charge, but an assist or a seconding detective can certainly say, hey, I think we need to do this particular investigation, right?
Yes, sir.
For example, they could say, if you had an assist or a second with you at the hospital, hey, I think we need to check to see his medical condition, right?
Yes, possibly. Yes, sir.
Right. And or an assist could say, hey, this guy looks pretty beaten up. Let's make sure we get this recorded, right?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever had a victim change or adjust their story?
Yes, sir.
Happens a lot,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Have you ever had a victim call up and say, have you found the guy?
Yes, sir.
Happens a lot,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
There was nothing unusual about what Michael Keatley did in calling you, right?
No, sir.
And in fact, those are the kind of victims you want to deal with because they're communicating with you.
Yes.
Okay, isn't it your experience that sometimes victims or witnesses will not cooperate?
Yes,
with
sir.
police, right?
That's right.
You have a motivated, cooperative victim in Michael KEETLEY, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let me also make clear. You said today, this is not insignificant, that Michael KEETLEY said the word on the street is. I'm going to talk about what the word on the street is in
Yes,
a
sir.
second. He called you up and said, I'm hearing things, right?
Yes, sir.
I may be paraphrasing.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I'm hearing things, right?
Yes, sir.
And you know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing it was Hispanic people that did this, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. He did not say, I'm changing what I said. It's no longer black, it's Hispanic.
That's
He
correct.
did not change, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now you are concerned with this idea of word on the street, right?
Yes, sir.
And there's a good reason for that,
Yes,
right?
Yes, sir.
What is that reason?
Because of the description he gave me initially is black males, and now he's telling us Hispanic males or Mexican males.
Now let me be particular on this. He did not tell you it was Mexican males, did he?
Yes, sir.
He told you it was Hispanic males.
I believe it was Mexican males.
He told you it's Hispanic, not Mexican.
Mexican males.
Okay. You testified about this before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You want me to show your previous testimony where you testified that it was Hispanic? I can do that.
Objection, Your Honor.
Legal basis.
Just improper impeachment.
Sustained.
Yeah, witness?
Who does this guy know on the street that's telling him? Like he doesn't know criminals. You're muted.
Hearing testimony.
He's the ice cream guy. He's driving around the neighborhood talking to people. He investigated it himself. He found all this crap the cops never found.
That's true.
And while we're doing this, Jonathan says unexplored caves. Thank you so much for the super chat. And Aldermer says verdict is in, and the poll on law and crime has hung jury at 10%. And the brightest folks over there. Interestingly, from what I hear, law and crime says he is 57% says not guilty, which is really odd for law and crime. So, but when the verdict comes in, let's not say what the verdict is here. Let people find out naturally or not at all. I'm trying to avoid it as long as possible, so it doesn't taint how I watch this. And yes, I just said taint, so get over it. Totally not a Russian bot says I'll sequester myself for spoilers 5 times speed, please. Yeah, you're going to be sequestered for like the next month. All right. That catches us up on the oldie super chat. So thank you very much for that. Let's see. Anyone think he did it? I don't know if he did it or not. I'm just, so far, we're just starting the case. And it's up to the police to prove to us that he can.
I'm not feeling the Mr. Rogers thing.
No, he's the police captain from Police Academy.
Oh, he kind of looks like him.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The jury testified, right?
Right, there
You
we go.
testified at a deposition, right?
Yes, sir.
And there was another time where you testified, right?
Yes, sir.
And you would agree with me that you varied between Hispanic and Mexican, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes, we know the verdict is in, but we just don't want you to mention it in chat, please.
today, that Michael KEETLEY said it was Mexican.
I remember Mexican. Yes, sir.
Okay. But you also remember Hispanic, right?
I don't remember that.
You're familiar with the Ruskin area, my mama old
Oh,
Sun
yes,
City
sir.
Center, right?
Yes, sir.
There's a heavy Hispanic population there, right?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware that Michael KEETLEY had a regular route with his ice cream truck?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You remember the color of the ice cream truck?
Purple?
Okay. Yeah. You went.
He's proud of himself for that one.
Yeah, purple ice cream truck. You remember
Good
the
guess,
color?
buddy.
I think that day he was going to do the Old Sun City route and then go to Manatee County.
Right, because he would not, because Ruskin, Waimama, Old Sun City Center, that's very close to Manatee, right?
Yes, sir.
Southernmost part of the county.
Old Sun City is. Yes, sir.
Yeah, right. And so he would run routes through Manatee, Palmetto, right?
Yes, sir. I guess so.
And also Ruskin, Waimama.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're familiar with the streets in Ruskin or not?
Some of them they changed a lot.
Right? But generally speaking, you had to be very familiar when you were running deputy patrol with the roads and the streets in your district and your zones, right?
Yes.
And taking it from you that Ruskin was maybe either not one of your regular zones when you were on the road, or it could have been a whole long time ago, right?
It was.
Okay. And people actually roads that from, right?
Yes, sir.
And, Brandon used to be a cow pastor, right? So as far as it relates to this case, you agree with me that you did look into whether this was a dark complected Mexican or Hispanic person.
No, sir.
You did not really look into whether it was a black person, right?
I had no suspects.
Well, I mean, that's kind of where I was going, right? I mean, unfortunately, you have just eyes, right?
Yes, sir.
And medium complexion.
Yes, sir.
Right? Nothing about nose piercings or something, a tattoo on nose or anything like that. No, nothing with eye piercings, eyebrow piercing, nose piercings.
What happened is
now you do have
the lawyer is standing as far away from a microphone as possible.
Yes, sir.
2 donut tires, right?
Yes, sir.
You know what donut tires are, right?
They're spare tires. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
they don't run very long.
30 miles.
30 miles, if that, right? And so I think at some point in time, you found a car that may have matched.
Yes.
Okay, had the dark tint, had the, but it did not have the donut tires.
Did not have dark tinted windows either.
Okay, did not have the dark tinted windows either. But tint can be removed, right?
I guess so. Yes, sir.
Sure. And of course, donut tires can and should be replaced, but at some point in time, they'll replace themselves by running out, right?
That's correct.
Right. So you did not run the tag on that car, right?
Yes, sir.
You did.
Yes, sir.
And who did that come back to?
To a Hispanic male or a Mexican male.
And did you investigate that person, his whereabouts on that day?
I know his whereabouts. Yes, sir.
Okay,
He
on
was,
that day.
he was in the hill on the day of the robbery.
Yes.
I don't know about the day of the robbery. When I ran the tag, he was somewhere incarcerated.
So he's in jail. And what day did you run that tag?
I don't remember.
Well, it had to be sometime before June.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, so we've got January 25 when you're a part of this case. We've got somewhere around June when you leave the agency. Can you give me a ballpark where it would be between June and January? Should you not have documented that in your report?
I did. I don't remember I don't think I documented the date, but I remember documented the tag number who the tag came back to.
All right, so I kind of left off on this idea of what Michael Keetley told you, because it's really important. He told you, as far as you recall, in that one interview in the hospital, that's the only time you saw him face to face, right?
That's correct.
In that one time face to face, he told you it was black male medium complexion, right?
Yes, sir.
When he calls you on a date that you do not know, and he is saying the word on the street is this,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
He is not telling you, I'm changing my story.
That's correct.
He is telling you, as far as you know, it's still 3 black males, right?
2 black males and a female.
Thank you. Right. He has not changed his story.
That's correct.
Exactly.
Okay? I'm getting word on the street that it was something else, right?
Yes, sir.
And your concern, part of that is going to be for what we call contamination,
That's correct.
right? You're familiar with the idea of contamination,
Yes.
true? Contamination is where somebody gets information from another source, right?
Yes.
Okay? If it's a trusted source, your wife tells you something, you're going to naturally believe her because it's a trusted source, right?
That's right.
But in that sense, she has now contaminated your specific knowledge of the matter, right?
Yes, sir.
And so that's what you're telling me, right?
I'm telling you, yes.
Right. Because you want your investigation, such as it is, and I mean that in the limited aspects that you have been able to do, you want your investigation to have integrity. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
And if we have word on the street contaminating what Michael Keetley knows, you may contaminate, or Michael Keetley may contaminate himself as a witness, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
The ability to articulate what's going on, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
So when you're telling him about the word on the street, you're telling him, don't get that in your head, right?
I didn't tell him that way. No, sir.
Well, but that's the message, right?
Yeah.
What's the message?
The message is I told him that you're hurting this case. You could hurt this case by giving me different descriptions and different descriptions of suspects.
Well, how is he
Wow.
hurting the case if he's telling you word on the street is that people are saying something different than what I saw?
Because he's giving a description of black males and 2 black males and a black female.
Right, but he's hearing word on the street of something different, right?
Yes.
And so you can try to investigate,
Wow.
right?
I could try. Yes.
Right. And so the questions were phrased to you by Ms. Doherty suggest, did he give you this? Did he give you this? Did you ask him? Did you record these calls?
No, sir. I did not record.
Tell me the name of one person that he told you about.
That's correct.
You cannot.
I cannot do it.
Whether it be a street name, a nickname, Christian birth name, anything.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And he called and said, look in this area, right? But he was not always able to give you specifics.
That's correct.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. He gave you license tags. You remember that?
You gave me a license tag?
Right. You remember that?
No, sir.
Okay. Are you saying it did not happen or you do not recall?
I don't recall.
Okay. I got it. And that's because you did not document it, right?
If they gave me a license plate, I would have documented it. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So are you saying it did not happen or did you maybe get it and fail to document?
I don't remember him giving me a license plate.
How long were these calls in length?
2 or 3 minutes at the most, maybe 3.
Okay. Did he ever leave you any voice messages?
If he did, I don't recall.
Because it could be hard to find folks like you going out on the street, right?
Yes,
You're not always at your desk.
that's correct.
And even in 2010, I think the iPhone was new. Smartphones aren't what they were today.
I guess, yes, sir.
Were you still carrying a pager? Or
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay, so you're still carrying a pager. So it's not easy to get to you, perhaps, right?
That's correct.
Because your job, while there is desk work involved, is primarily being out responding to scenes, right?
That's right.
You did go to the scene on one occasion, right?
Yes, sir.
What date was that?
The lead investigator went to the scene once.
What date was that you went out to the scene?
He seems just like a crotchety old detective that couldn't be
What time of
bothered.
day was it?
Daytime, I was working day shift.
Okay. What time was this incident? What time was Michael KEETLEY shot?
I have to look at the report.
Sure. Take a look at it yourself, and when you're done, please look up at me, and we'll see if you're refreshed.
He shuffled papers and the subtitle said foreign.
64 pages. I'm looking through here.
Of that 164 pages, that's not
Found the microphone.
No,
That's it. We don't.
For now. How long ago did he retire? Do we know?
During the investigation. So that's why I'm saying when he retired, he didn't tell.
Looking for to expedite this if he can't find it.
He didn't tell the defendant he was retiring. He didn't brief any other detectives on the case. He just left it on the desk and walked out, I guess. Ms. K. Griff says June 25th, 2010, he retired.
You may.
Okay. All right. This may help you.
So before the murders that he's on trial for. Between the time the defendant got shot
This is my
and
report.
people
I'm looking
died.
for the original report written by the deputies on what time this occurred.
So he was really on the way out.
Yeah.
We'll get there. This idea that I'll make a note to ask that question again. Let me talk to you about this idea that when you went to the scene, we'll get there in a second. You've gone during the daytime shift, right?
Yes.
Was that still 6 to 6 or 7 to 7 or 8 to 5? What was it?
8 to 4:30.
8 to 4:30. Why'd you go to the scene?
Just to view it, and just to view the scene.
It was kind of a residential area where he was shot.
Yes.
Right? So there were multiple
Just to view it.
houses there.
There's houses there.
Yeah.
Not to collect evidence, not to follow up on leads. Just wanted to look.
A neighborhood survey done on January 23rd, 2010 by then Deputy McMurtry or anybody else?
Yes.
Okay. Now.
I bet he billed for the travel time, though.
On doors, and they will ask, hey, were you home? Did you notice anything, right?
That's correct.
And what we've added over the years with technology, do you have any cameras at home, Ring doorbells, or anything? I don't know if Ring was a thing back then. But do you have any camera or surveillance that we may be able to look at?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, oftentimes, a neighborhood survey is to be thorough and complete. So
Yes.
it should not miss a potential lead that may not be obvious. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Right? Because sometimes people are home, they think they hear something, nobody ever asks them, and we lose witness testimony, right?
Yes.
What was the result of the neighborhood survey done by Mr. McMurtry, Deputy McMurtry, do you know? Or anybody else in law enforcement? It was not the actual one.
Nothing.
There were a lot of surveys done that nobody saw, heard shots, but did not see anything.
All right. Now, sometimes neighborhood surveys occur when you go back and ask again, right?
Yes.
Now, when you went back to the scene, did you re-engage with a neighborhood survey?
No, sir.
Why not?
Because nobody saw anything other than hearing shots.
Well, how many people, let me put it this way, do sometimes people hear shots and want to stay out of investigation?
It's a possibility, yes.
It's happened to you before where people hear or see things and they say no, right?
Yes,
And sometimes you have to go back and you have to ask them again, right?
sometimes, yes, sir.
And sometimes those people who originally said I did not see anything actually do see something, right?
Sometimes,
Right. So there's a value about going back and asking this question again,
yes,
right? But you did not do that.
I did.
This guy was a few months from retiring and gave exactly 0 fucks at this point, I think.
So I know we're
Yeah, he didn't care at all.
digging with the time. Did you go out to that scene at the time of the event, or did you go out at that scene just because you were on duty?
Yes, it's the deed to scene. I was not there at the initial robbery.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, detective. I asked that question back. Sometimes people go out to the scene at the time the event takes place.
Correct.
Okay, and that's the actual time, right?
Yes, sir.
Sometimes people will go follow up to a scene at the same day or time of day when it occurred, right?
Correct.
Something occurs Monday at 4 o'clock, you're gonna go out Tuesday at 4 o'clock to try to replicate conditions, right?
Yes, sir.
You did not do that while going out. You just went out during your time, right?
Right.
And obviously, people in the neighborhood, they may work, right?
Yes, sir.
They may be gone, right?
Yes, sir.
So sometimes you can send, and deputies are sent out during the evening shift to do another neighborhood survey. Hey, did you hear anything, right?
It's possible, yes, sir.
Okay, wasn't done, right?
Correct.
If this had been a Hispanic man, you would have wanted to make the arrest, right?
Yes, sir.
White, black, Asian, whatever, if you would have wanted to have made that arrest, right?
Yes,
And you, as a detective, have to sift through information. Can we agree with me on this?
yes,
That sometimes we have facts that are important, right?
yes,
Sometimes we have facts that are not important, right?
yes,
They may be interesting, but they're not important to find out what's going on, right?
yes,
Okay? And you, at this point in time, have at least Michael KEETLEY telling you something, and Michael KEETLEY telling you, I have more information that is different from what I told you, right?
that's correct.
Okay? And you told him to ignore it.
I didn't tell him, no, sir, I did not tell him that.
Okay? Did you follow up on it?
I had nothing to follow up on. No addresses or names to follow up on.
Let me ask you this. When we say you had nothing to follow up on, there was a blood or blood-like substance outside of the van, right?
Yes,
Okay, there was a shell casing, right?
yes.
And you said you processed that for prints, right?
It was processed for prints.
That blood was swabbed, right?
Yes,
And what happens is there's a swab. I know the name, but I always pronounce it wrong. There's a
It's
swab
buccal.
to determine whether that
Shut up. It's buckle.
Right? If that substance can, in fact, lead to a DNA profile, right?
yes,
And if, in fact, that DNA profile can be something that's viable and can be comparable to something, right?
correct.
Now, I get what we're assuming, okay? That these people, no indication that they bled, right?
Yes,
We don't know that they did not bleed, right?
we don't know that.
Right, because I mean, he's just getting his stuff, all $12 taken from him, and he's shot multiple times, right?
Yes,
Bleeding heavily,
yes.
right? He doesn't have the time to say, am I the only one bleeding here, does he?
I don't guess so. No, sir.
Right? So what we have there is a substance that can be taken to biology and serology at FDLE, right?
That's correct.
Can we develop a DNA profile?
He's got a really fast cadence. He just keeps going and going and going.
Right?
Yes,
The DNA database is a collection over time of people giving samples, right?
yes,
And there is a way that if a sample is viable, that can be run through the system,
that's
right?
correct.
To see if there's a match,
Yes, sir.
okay? And that could be a terrific investigative lead, right?
Right.
Could have been a black male, right?
Could have been.
Could have been a Hispanic male, right?
Yes,
Could have been a Mexican male,
yes.
okay? It could have been someone who did this to Michael KEETLEY,
A possibility, yes.
right? You did not take that to FDLE, did you?
No, sir.
You did not request that to be done, right?
That's correct.
That is a lead that you could have done, sir. Can we agree on that? And if not you, any of the detectives behind you, that could have been done,
It
right?
could have been done.
And it was not done.
It was not done.
I have nothing further.
Wow. That was strong.
It was. He comes off as kind of swarmy, but I think I like him.
Know that Mr. KEETLEY had been shot more than one time. Is that correct?
Jack leading.
Boom.
Were you aware of his
Right
that
off
he
the
had-
bat.
is that correct?
That's correct.
Where were you interviewing him?
Yes,
Did he indicate to those other first responding deputies as to what caused his injuries?
that he was injured.
Yes.
Yes,
And when you were going back to that interview of Mr. KEETLEY on January 26th of 2010, when you said he was coherent, was there any time when you were talking to him that he seemed confused or not understand what was going on?
no, ma'am.
Jack calls for a medical conclusion and is speculative.
Did he You can answer the question.
No, ma'am.
Was he able to adequately or appropriately respond to your questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he ever slur his words?
No, ma'am.
Did he ever sound like he nonsensical
No, ma'am.
in response to one of your questions?
No, ma'am.
Was he able to provide you with consistent statements that he did to the first responders back on January 23rd of 2010?
Yes, ma'am.
And if there was any time or any point of time where he felt like he was not talking, did he ever indicate that to you?
No, ma'am.
So he did not have any issue providing you with an interview on January 26th of 2010.
Object, leading, counsel testifying, rephrase.
Was there any, did he ever indicate to you during that interview that he wanted to stop the interview?
No, ma'am.
And after that interview, did you use the basis of that to put out that alert that you talked about?
I put the alert out before I interviewed him, the written alert.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And what was where did you get the description information for that alert?
For the original report.
And did you go over those descriptions with him again during your January 26, 2010 interview?
Yes, ma'am.
And when he is telling you the descriptions of black male, did he ever nuance it to you to indicate that it was a dark or light-skinned Hispanic black male?
No, ma'am.
Was the only description that he provided concerning race was black male?
Correct.
I don't have anything further, Judge.
May this witness be released or subject to recall by the state?
He can be released, Judge.
Released or subject to recall?
Subject to recall, he does not need to hang around for that.
All right, you may step down, but there's a possibility to be recalled. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and take our afternoon break. So I'll get you out of here while we're packing up. The witness is packing up. Please do not discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Please do not do any research related to the case. We'll take about a 20-minute break, and we'll see you back when you are ready. All rise for the jury.
All right. Well, there's the jury going out. Let's.
And on prior appropriate for any of the things that you're going to play.
No edits on the stuff you're going to play. Yes, this judge, we watched a trial with this judge a few months ago, Florida v. Terry, with the stabby McStab face that stabbed his girlfriend in the face a bunch of times and cut her throat. All right, fast forward in here.
The plan is to go up to, I told him I'd try to get him out of here before 4:30, so it's 3:11. If we come back at 3:30, you know, an hour and a half is 5 o'clock, so an hour and 15 minutes or so.
We're sending him to.
All right, we don't need to hear them jack John with each other. All right. Before we do this, let's clear a couple that we don't. No super chats to get through here, but yeah, I was just saying we had Stabby McStab face, Matthew Terry in Florida a few months ago. His girlfriend got a little bit too close to somebody in a bar. Some guy walked past a guy, maybe looked in the guy's general direction, so he stabbed her in the face like 19 times and slit her throat, and then ran away and stabbed himself a couple of times to make it look like he was also the victim of an attack. And he was put away for life. Forever and ever and ever. So if you want to go back and watch that, it's the Matthew Terry case, and it is in my playlist. Let's see again.
It was a good
trial.
Was that? It was a good trial. That one was.
Yeah, it was a very good trial. Great judge, great prosecutor. The prosecutor didn't try any shenanigans, didn't try any shady crap. So we're doing good with that case. Yeah, let's see here. All right. Anyway, in the background here, while this is going on, I'm trying to arrange interviews with Zenith Anderson and Saul Anderson for next week. So with any luck, we should have both of them on at some point next week. Lex Luthor says, wasn't the movie theater shooter a few years back and it was a ginger kid who did it? No, it was a retired police officer and some giant 6'4", 6'5" guy sitting in front of him talking on his cell phone before the movie started. When the credits started, the officer asked him to please put his phone away, and he said something like, I'm talking to my kids or talking to somebody. And then testosterone got the best of both of them, and the guy that had the popcorn in front of the the retired police officer threw the popcorn at him and possibly threw his cell phone at him and possibly threw a punch at him, and he got shot and died for it. And this was his lawyer. Short guy here was his lawyer, and he was acquitted. And again, this judge is a fantastic judge.
I do like this judge.
So I'm asking because Vice said that it was the same attorney who represented him. Yeah, it was this guy here.
Somebody had mentioned that this judge went viral too for the "I hope you end in prison."
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The witnesses on the case like this, says W. McMaster. The witnesses on a case like this are a joke. How the F are you supposed to remember fine details 12 to 13 years later? Well, during all of this, I mean, they've given statements to the police. They've most likely been deposed, gone through depositions, and there's written records of stuff that they probably told the police and lawyers during that intervening time, and they can use those to refresh. But of course, the memory does go, and it may contradict things. And also, they've already had one trial on this. This is the second trial on this because the first one ended in a deadlock. And just a reminder, and it's a couple of people have mentioned it here in chat. We're going to find out. I mean, this trial has just ended a few minutes ago with a verdict, whatever that verdict was. We're going to be doing this probably for the next 3 weeks. Or, well, I guess probably a little bit longer than the next 3 weeks as time permits. We're going to find out what the verdict is before, but I want to hold on to my innocence as long as I can. So spoilers, keep the spoilers, what the verdict was, out of the chat. Again, we'll all find out at some point, but let's leave the suspense as long as we possibly can. Thank you very much for all of those comments. Let's jump right back into this. Oh, and I guess now it's time for midstream grift. Strong said something funny. I was trying to get rid of one and I accidentally clicked on that one.
Oops.
And let's see. We have our like and subscribe poll. Currently, we've got 572 concurrent viewers, 596 likes, and 635 votes. Again, we've got like 50 more votes than people actually hit the like button. But while you're here, please make sure you hit that like button. And I would deeply, deeply appreciate it if you would subscribe to me if you haven't already done so. And then take our poll. Let's see how our poll is doing. Right now, 15% of you said you smashed the like and subscribe button. Yes, but this is a very vanilla poll. When asked, 18% of you said yes, like ice cream to kill for. And 31% of you said yes, bring a double scoop of justice. And leading with 35% of the vote, you liked and smashed, but it was a rocky road, but you did it.
Rocky road wins every time.
It does. There's today's lame poll. We'll check back in again here in about an hour to see how that's going. Well, peppermint ice cream doesn't fit into a poll anyway I could possibly think of. So, whatever happened to the good old fashioned Chuck E. Cheese or Chick-fil-A shootings? How about we don't have shootings?
Yeah, let's work on that, y'all. Let's work on that.
All right. So they're back. They're in a huddle. Let's see what's happening. And why not? We'll give you the grift. A week from this Friday will be F It Friday, where we grift for money and take shots in exchange and have lots of people on the panel, including Valhalla Awaits,
I'll
and
be
our
there.
very own Flux and others as time goes on. So anyway, super chat away. We're here. Let's keep it going.
I'm going to excuse myself for a couple minutes and deal with some dog issues.
All right.
I'll be right back.
Good. Go deal with dog issues. And in the meantime, we'll do this. Any super chats that come in, appreciate it. All right. It's not muted. It's not me. I'm not booming anything. They're huddling at the sidebar. He's still listening to Insane Clown Posse or NWA. Judge Peter Griffin on the
thing about him back. Let me just ask briefly during the break, was anybody here?
ask that. Next witness.
I found it. Miss Gregory, good afternoon and welcome. You'll come forward to be sworn as a witness wherever you're comfortable. If you'll face me and raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Yes. Thank you, ma'am. If you'll follow the bailiff down to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step. I believe there's some cords. When you get to that seat, go ahead, have a seat, make yourself comfortable. The microphone in front of you is fully adjustable.
And it's fully adjustable.
Will you please state your name?
Brian Gregory.
Spell your last name for me, please.
Gregory.
Ms. Gregory, I'm going to take you back to 2010. What were you doing for work back then?
Bartending
Where were you working?
at a golf course.
All right. Was there a time that you went to a different bar, Shenanigans?
Yes.
Okay. In 2010?
Yes.
Who'd you go there with?
My friend April Dosher.
Did you meet anybody there?
Yes.
Wait, anybody with a good memory, wasn't the bar Shenanigans the same bar where Stabby McStabface went with his girlfriend when in the other group of people when she got too close to the guy, which led to the murder? Wasn't that a Shenanigans bar too? That sounds really familiar for some reason. Wow, that would be weird. Okay. Anyway. That sounds really familiar. The Stabby McFat Stab Face, Terry, and his girlfriend and a group of people went to Shenanigans. Ooh, yes. People are saying, yes, that sounds familiar. And yes, I'm correct. All right. That was interesting.
Bunch of people, fair?
Yeah.
Did you meet Michael Keetley there?
Yes.
Was that the first time you met him?
Yes.
All right. So tell me about this interaction.
We just sat there and they were friends, and he described what had happened to him when he was robbed.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. You guys are sitting where?
At the bar.
Where are you all sitting next to each other?
He was sitting on this side, like on the corner, and then it was her, and then it was me.
When you're speaking to your friend and Mr. Keetley, had you spoken to him before at all?
No.
First time you're meeting him?
Yes.
All right. You said that he was telling you about being robbed.
Yes.
What did you learn that day?
That he was robbed by 3 people when he was delivering ice cream for a small amount of money.
Is that the first time you'd heard about all that?
I had heard about it through the news.
Okay. First time you'd heard about it from Mr. Keetley?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to meet him a second time?
Yes.
How long after the first time that you met him was it the second time that you met him?
Probably 2 weeks, maybe.
So tell me about that interaction.
We just ran into each other and passing at the same bar, and he asked if I knew anybody named Creeper.
Did that name sound familiar to you?
No.
Now, I want to kind of jump back to that first interaction. You said that it was on an ice cream truck.
Yes.
And then what other information did he give you during that first interaction?
That there was a girl and 2 guys.
It was Landing Bar Girl. You're right.
About race?
They were
You're right. You're right. It wasn't
that
it.
told to you by who?
Him.
Him being who? Give me
Michael
names.
Keetley.
Okay. So now let's fast forward to the second interaction. Creeper. What's the context that that's given to you?
That he...
Simple. I'm not covering the new
Something
Kenosha
to do
case
with
because
him.
we're covering
Do
this
you
one.
remember the exact words that Mr. Keetley used to you when he's speaking to you in the bar that second time talking about Creeper?
Do you know anyone named Creeper?
Those are the exact words.
As
What's your
far as
answer?
I know.
Okay. What's
No.
your answer?
No.
Any follow-up to that conversation on that day at the bar between you and Mr. Keetley?
No.
Are those the only 2 times that you saw Mr. Keetley?
No.
Where'd you see him again?
At a party.
Where was that?
Like the address or
Basic area.
Ruskin.
What day was it?
Halloween.
October 31st?
Yes.
What year?
2010.
Same year that you'd spoken to him before?
Yes.
Who else at this party?
A lot of people.
Friends of yours?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see Mr. Keetley at the party?
Yes.
Did you go to the party with him?
No.
Run into him there?
Yes.
Do you all take a picture?
Yes.
Are you all dressed in costumes?
Yes.
What were you dressed up as?
A mummy.
Say it again.
A mummy.
All right. And what was Mr. Keetley dressed as?
A cop.
Judge, I'm showing defense what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit 98 for any objections.
Oh, cool. Do we get to see her dressed up as a mummy? That'd be awesome.
May I approach the witness?
Let's see her mummy costume.
Showing you out of view of the jury what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 98. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
Have you seen this photograph before?
Yes.
Does this photograph fairly and accurately represent the picture you all took on October 31st, 2010?
Yes.
All right, this time I'd ask to move into evidence what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 98. State's Exhibit 98. Permission to publish. Ms. Gregory, there's a screen behind you and to the left.
Yes.
What are we looking at here?
A picture of me and my sister and
That's the lamest mummy costume ever.
All right, so who's Jonathan?
the guy in the back with the hat.
Are you referring to, I'll point to the top left-hand side of the photograph?
Yes.
In the middle, in the photograph between you and your sister, who is that?
Michael Keetley.
You refer to the costume that he's wearing. Does this photograph depict the costume?
Yes.
Tell me what that costume was.
A cop.
Tell me what he's wearing that made you believe that it was a cop costume.
The word police.
Did he have other things, a gun belt, a gun, pants?
Yes.
So tell me about those.
He had camo pants on and boots and what I assumed was a fake gun, like part of the costume.
Was it in a gun belt or a holster?
Yeah.
Was all
It
of
was on his like waist.
Okay, all of that visible when you're seeing him walking around.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and that picture was introduced to because they said that he was dressed as a police officer allegedly when he allegedly committed the alleged crime. So
Yes.
Would you point to him and tell me what he's wearing?
A gray beige cardigan and a white shirt.
You want to please let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant. I'll pass it.
yes.
That's pretty clear.
Good afternoon, Ms. Gregory. You previously testified that you had several interactions with Mr. KEETLEY.
Yes.
All of those interactions in combination, very brief,
Yes.
Including the Halloween party as well.
Yes.
Do you remember how many people were at that Halloween party?
Probably 20 to 30.
20, 30. Everyone's drinking, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
And everyone's in costume.
Yes.
And again, when you spoke with Mr. KEETLEY at the bar, he asked you if you knew someone named Creeper.
Yes.
Simple yes or no?
Yes.
And left it at that.
Yes.
Okay, may I have a minute?
Yes.
No further questions.
Redirect
No redirect. She may be released.
and released by the defense or subject to recall? Subject to recall. All right, you may step down. You need to wait outside, but you are subject to recall.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, real quickly, the relevance of her. During opening statements, the prosecution said that the person that committed these murders drove up in a van and was wearing a police type costume, a police type uniform. And so I guess they introduced those pictures to show that he had a police type uniform. He was wearing approximately 1 month before the murders were committed. CMN3, thank you so much for the super chat. Been a long time no super chats. I'm keeping my promise to make fun of you for various reasons. Extra shiny today, Jeff. Thanks for all the content you make to keep this simple man entertained. Well, thank you so much for providing the support necessary to keep me able to entertain you. Thank you so much. Deeply, deeply appreciated. Use the word costume loosely. Exactly. All right. Let's get our next witness.
Call your next witness. Stacey Rogan.
All right, Stacey Rogan. Stacey Rogan. Make sure her name is spelled correctly. Let's bring her on in. There we go.
That's perfect. If you'll face me and raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. If you'll follow the bailiff now to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step.
Please keep your hands and arms inside the right at all times and have fun.
That microphone in front of you is adjustable.
Good afternoon, Ms. Rogan.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your first name and your last name and spell your last name, please?
Stacey Rogan, Rogan.
And do you know the defendant in this case, Michael KEETLEY?
I do.
Is the chair you need to
Yes,
lift it a little bit?
I'm okay.
Okay. How is it that you know Michael KEETLEY?
The tarot cards told her.
I met him in Riverview.
Did you ultimately get in a romantic relationship with him?
I did.
Oh, saucy.
Today?
Interesting.
I do.
Can you please point to him and describe an article of clothing that he's wearing?
White shirt.
Please let the record reflect that Ms. Rogan has identified the defendant, Michael KEETLEY. And do you recall approximately when you were in this relationship with Mr. KEETLEY?
2009.
And approximately how long did you date him for?
Probably anywhere from 6 to 9 months.
And was this a steady relationship or was it an on and off again relationship?
It was on and off.
And when you dated him in 2009, that was prior to any injury he sustained in January 2010. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what did you do for a living in 2009 when you dated Mr. KEETLEY?
Owned and operated an ice cream truck.
And what color was your ice cream?
Oh, it's
truck?
ice cream love.
And what area did you work?
Riverview.
How long did you do that for? How long were you an ice cream truck driver?
About 20 years.
And what was the name of your business?
Ice cream truck.
In 2009, when you were dating Mr. Keetley, was he an ice cream truck driver?
That makes me so happy.
What did he do when you first met him?
Mr. Plow.
I don't think he was doing anything. He said he had been laid off from a job.
Do you recall where he was working previously?
Maybe an airline, like as an airline mechanic or something.
Okay, is that what he had told you? Is that correct? Is that a yes?
Yes, ma'am.
It's quite the career path.
After you began dating him, did he soon thereafter become employed? Okay.
He started his own ice cream truck.
And how did he go about
He
doing that?
snorted his own ice cream truck? What?
He purchased a van and
He started, not
taught him
snorted.
what to do, and he started doing
That
it.
makes a little more
You
sense.
taught him what to do because you had been doing that for many years before. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And now they were
Do you
competition. She
recall
hated him
when
and they
your
broke up.
relationship ended. I'm not asking for an exact date. I know this was many, many years ago. Do you remember what season it may have been in 2009 when your relationship ended?
The fall, like around October.
Of 2009?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you maintain contact with the defendant once you and he broke up?
I don't believe that we talked in between that last time that we broke up until he had reached out after he was shot.
So there was no contact from the time you broke up until you said until he had got shot. So how did that contact happen?
He called from the hospital.
And do you recall, was that in January of 2010?
Yes,
And what did he tell you?
that he had been shot and he was in the hospital. And
Did he tell you anything other than the fact that he had been shot?
he told me that he explained to me what happened in his version of what happened. He said that somebody had tried to pull him over for ice cream. They had given him the brights, and he pulled over, and a light-skinned black female approached the truck, asked for soda. He turned around to tell her what he had in the truck, and then when he turned back around, there was two masked gunmen.
And you said they flicked their lights. What do you mean by that?
Like their brights, their hazard lights, or bright lights.
And is that a sign to
If
you?
somebody's motioning for you to pull over, somebody was behind you and they kept flicking the lights to get your attention.
Okay. Is that a common practice for individuals who want to get the attention of an ice cream truck driver to pull over? Is that something that you've had experience with?
I don't know if it's a common practice, but
You must really want ice cream if you
Okay.
if you jump in your
So,
car, you chase after the ice
He
cream
proceeds
lady
to
and
tell you
flash
that
your lights.
a black
Pull
female
over.
had approached him and asked to purchase a soda.
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
yes,
And
I'd
he
do
told
it.
you that when he had turned back around to tell her what brands he had, there were two masked men.
yes, ma'am.
Did he tell you what ethnicity or race they were?
Two black masked gunmen.
Did he provide you any other description other than that you've stated here today?
Mm-mm.
Is that a no?
No,
We just have to make sure you say yes
I
or no
know.
out loud so that the court reporter can take everything down.
I'm working on it.
Did you know whether or not the defendant carried a firearm with him in his ice cream truck?
He had one on him that particular day. I don't know if he did every single time that he worked, but I know that he had one that day because he told me he had one.
What did he tell you about that?
That he had a gun in his back of his pants.
Was he able to utilize it that day?
No, I believe that by the time he went to pull it out, they had already started shooting at him.
Between that call in January of 2010 from the defendant to Thanksgiving of 2010, did you maintain or did you have any other further phone contact with the defendant?
Can you repeat those dates again?
Sure. So when he called you in January of 2010 when he was in the hospital
Mhm.
to Thanksgiving of 2010, did you have phone contact?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have any face-to-face contact with the defendant?
Just one time.
Do you recall approximately when that was?
No, I don't know the month or when it was.
Can you tell me about that contact? What happened and where it was?
It was in the Rivercrest subdivision. I don't remember the name of the street, but I had come to a full stop and he was at a house across the street and he walked straight towards my truck to talk to me.
You were in your ice cream truck?
Yes, ma'am.
Was this in the Riverview area?
Yes,
Were you working that day?
yes.
And did you see where he being the defendant, had come from to approach your ice cream truck?
From a house across the street.
And what observations did you make, if anything, when he approached your truck?
None other than he just walked up normal to my truck.
Did he walk up normal and appear normal as you, the last time you had seen him when you broke up with him in 2009?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you engage in a conversation with the defendant?
We did.
Do you recall any specifics about that conversation?
I do not.
Do you know approximately how long that interaction lasted?
A few minutes, maybe.
And then did you leave or did he leave?
I'm assuming he walked back to the property that he had come from, and I continued on my route.
You had previously stated that between January 2010 and November of 2010, that there was some phone communication. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was there also text messaging?
I'm assuming so, yes.
What information would you and the defendant communicate about during this time frame?
I mean, at first he was just kind of calling to keep me updated about how he was feeling, you know, his health progress, I guess, and where he was at, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Was he working at that time initially that you recall?
No.
Did he? Did you learn whether or not he had begun to work at some point?
Yes. Yes, I believe he started taking an ice cream truck back out again.
And did you learn that from your communication with him?
Yes.
Did he discuss with you anything else regarding the facts of his robbery, the robbery that he was the victim in?
Not really, other than that he was trying to find the people that did it to him.
Did he tell you what actions he took in order to try and find the people that committed the crime against him?
He was talking to a lot of people in those neighborhoods.
Did he talk to you at all about his feelings about law enforcement's investigation regarding that?
Yeah, he was very frustrated that they weren't listening to him, and yeah, he was very frustrated that they weren't listening to him. He felt that they weren't listening to him and they weren't doing anything about information, I guess, that he was getting.
Did he tell you that he was doing anything other than going out in the community and speaking to people?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Did he tell you any information about what he had in fact learned through his investigation?
He had told me to keep my eyes open for a Mexican guy with a tattoo that said Cuba.
Were you still working as an ice cream truck driver at that time?
I was.
Were you aware of anybody with the nickname Creeper or with someone with a creeper tattoo down their arm? And what did he tell you to do if you in fact came across this person with a creeper tattoo down their arm?
He didn't necessarily tell me to do anything, just to keep my eyes open. I mean, let him know, keep my eyes open if I saw this person.
Did he tell you to contact law enforcement?
No, ma'am.
Did you make any statements to him regarding the fact that he was conducting his own investigation regarding this robbery?
I told him that I felt that he should just let the police take care of their job, and yeah, that's really all I told him, is that I felt like he needed to let the police handle it.
When he had told you that he was that he had learned that a Mexican man with a creeper tattoo was down his arm, did he make any further statements regarding the black female and the two black males that he had originally identified to you as a suspect?
No.
Did you call him out on that at all?
No.
Do you recall approximately how long before Thanksgiving Day in 2010 he had asked you to look for this person with a creeper tattoo down his arm?
I want to say a few months. It was probably a few months before that.
So like some kind of underground ice cream truck mafia that I don't know about?
Did he make any statements to you regarding handling things himself or taking this investigation into his own hands?
Not those exact words, but he was actively looking for the people that had shot him.
Did he make any statements about thinking that he understands how people take things into their own hands?
Oh,
And matters
yes.
into their own hands. He understands why people do that.
Yes, 100%.
In November of 2010, do you recall a phone conversation with the defendant regarding a purchase he was going to make?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me about that conversation?
He had called me to let me know that he was at the Publix nearby because he was purchasing a handgun.
Did he give you any information about what kind of handgun this was that he was purchasing?
No,
Did he make any statements to you about why he was purchasing this handgun?
because the handgun that he had wasn't comfortable in his hand anymore.
When you made observations of him from that in-person contact, that one in-person contact, did you notice anything unusual or deformed or any kind of abnormality about his hand or his hand use?
No, I didn't.
The day after the shooting, on Friday, the day after the Thanksgiving shooting, did you learn about that shooting?
Yes.
Did you contact law enforcement when you learned about the shooting that took place on Thanksgiving morning?
I went to law enforcement with whatever information I felt could be helpful.
And did you tell them the information that you have stated here today?
I did.
She ratted him out.
Yeah.
She ratted him out.
Yes, she did.
Ms. Rogan, when I had questioned you about the one-person contact that you had with Mr. Keetley, you said that he walked normal. And so I want to define that a little bit. When you saw him walk, did you see him walk with a limp?
Not that I recall.
And this is in 2010, you saw him after the shooting in January 2010. Is that
Yes,
correct?
ma'am. Yes.
Nothing further, Judge.
Okay, yeah, so she was the one that ratted him out to the police, it sounds like.
Good afternoon, Ms. Rogan.
Which hand is supposedly all messed up?
You just testified that you and Mr. Keetley dated somewhere around the ballpark
His
of 6
right
months,
hand, I believe.
ending end of 2009. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I believe you used the phrase on and off again. We're all familiar, on and off, meaning not consistent, not stable. Correct.
Correct.
And you only saw Mr. Keetley one time after he had been robbed and shot back January of 2010, correct?
Correct.
Any communications that you may have had besides that one time, and I'll get to that, would have been texts, emails, phone calls.
Text and phone calls, yes.
You indicated that you heard Mr. Keetley was taking the ice cream truck back out at some point. Is that correct?
He told me that, yes.
He also told you that he hired someone to assist him.
Correct.
And during those conversations, again, I'm moving towards after you guys broke up finally, after Mr. Keetley had been shot and robbed. During those conversations, he told you people were coming up to him on the streets about information. Is that correct?
I believe it was more he was looking for information. He was going out seeking information.
So it's you don't recall that Mr. Keetley told you that people were coming to him with information, word on the street, essentially.
I mean, it's a matter of different words that we're using, but yes,
I'll rephrase that.
he was looking for information. He was getting information. People were coming forward, and
So yes, people were coming to him, word on the street, essentially saying, "Hey, here, maybe this,
Right,
maybe
right.
that." And at that point, that's when you learned of the name Creeper, specifically a tattoo on the arm, Creeper.
Yes.
For you to look out for that tattoo, correct?
yes,
And you testified as well that there was a time on the phone that Mr. Keetley mentioned he was on his way to Publix to get a gun that would be more comfortable in his hands, correct?
yes,
You never saw this, the firearm never followed up on that conversation.
no,
Oh, we seem to have fixed the audio issues.
And the one time in which you did see Mr. Keetley after he had been shot was very brief, correct?
correct,
You were driving the ice cream truck, therefore focusing. I know you stopped, but you're focusing on your route, right?
correct.
A very brief interaction in which you're not really focusing on his abilities. Correct?
I mean, I came to a full stop and he walked towards me. It's not.
Were you focusing on his abilities to maneuver?
I just watched him walk towards me.
Right, because that wasn't the focus, correct?
I suppose.
And you weren't watching him maneuver his hands. It's not like he was helping you out with something or holding
No.
anything.
No, not at all.
So you would not be able to testify to those injuries.
No, I didn't notice any injuries.
But you also wouldn't have been able to see any limitations at that point.
Okay, she's starting
Yeah,
to talk
we'll see.
fast now. She talks fast when she gets
And
excited.
you mentioned that you spoke with detectives. I believe it was the Friday after the shooting. Is that correct?
The day after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Yes, Friday.
In which you mentioned you brought forward whatever information you had.
Correct.
And several hours prior to this conversation with detectives, you were made aware of a text message that was circulating in the community about Mr. KEETLEY.
Several hours.
Yes.
I went to the police as soon as I learned about the text message.
If I may have a moment.
Yes.
Another question. Thank you.
That was a quick moment.
May I have a moment, Judge?
Yes.
I bet she reads palms out of her ice cream truck.
Released by the defense. All right, now,
Okay, so she's done. Now, the way I see it, she was called basically to say that he had a gun the day of the robbery, and they started shooting before he could pull it out. The prosecution said that he did it, but the defense was saying it was physically impossible for him to operate a firearm with the injury he had. And so they brought her in to say, well, he reportedly had a gun the day he was robbed. And then at some point before the shooting, he went and for some reason called her from a Publix and said, I'm buying a gun because the other gun feels uncomfortable in my hand. So the purpose of her testimony to me seems to be to prove that he had a gun at the time of the accident and he bought another one, which implies he could use it.
That's what it would imply.
All right.
Mr. Caswell, good afternoon and welcome. You'll come forward and be sworn as a witness. Wherever you're comfortable, if you'll face me and raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you've given in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. If you'll follow the bailiff, the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step. Get to that. Go ahead, have a seat, make yourself comfortable. That microphone in front of you is fully jumping. Let me know when you're ready.
Ooh, look at that stash.
That
Would you
doesn't
state your
fit
name,
his
please?
face.
Ronald Cashwell.
And spell your last name for me.
Cashwell.
I want to take you back to November of 2010. Where did you work then?
Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
In what role and capacity?
I was a crime scene detective.
And as a crime scene detective, did you have specific responsibilities and duties that would essentially vary per scene that you're responding to?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So just basically and kind of overall, give us what is a crime scene detective? What do you do?
We responded to major crime scenes where we were responsible for taking photographs, collecting evidence, processing evidence, aerial photographs, things of that nature.
In a typical
That
scene,
mustache
such
just
as the one
looks
we're going to talk
weird on
about
him.
now, would there be more than one crime scene detective or crime scene investigator that responds?
Yes, ma'am.
Do each of you have kind of individual roles that you're going to fill in that job assignment on that scene?
On every scene, yes, it could be different.
In the case that originates at 604 Ocean Mist Court, was there a lead crime scene investigator?
When I arrived there, CSI Patel was the lead crime scene on that.
Were you assigned a different role than the lead crime scene investigator?
Yes, ma'am.
What was your role?
I originally responded to the Ocean Mist, the 604, and met with my supervisors, and they requested that I respond.
Walmart sells
to
guns in
interest
Utah.
on Ocean Mist, and then
In Tennessee,
We're going to
too.
get to those in a few minutes, but fair to say you're not the lead investigator for this incident.
no, ma'am.
So when you arrived to 604 Ocean Mist, approximately what time is it?
Around 5 o'clock in the morning.
Starting to go from dark to light?
Correct.
Were you coming on as a day shift investigator?
Yes, ma'am.
Taking over for who would have been there initially as the night investigators?
Correct.
In that role, did you speak with detectives that were on scene?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you speak with other crime scene investigators that were on scene?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you essentially briefed on what had happened prior to your arrival?
Yes.
Were you given responsibilities at that point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now let's go into the different locations that you respond to.
Okay.
Where do you go first?
Well, I originally went to the 604 first, met with my supervisors,
And then do you respond to a second
and
location?
then I responded to 2 other locations on Ocean Mist.
Where's the first one you go to?
Was 612.
Why?
There was a vehicle there that was held by deputies that supposedly one of the victims had responded back to the scene. And so I was asked to go photograph and process that.
Now, as part of the briefing before you start your work, did you learn that there had been a victim that had left the scene and there was some information or evidence that needed to be collected?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that vehicle that you responded to part of what you had learned? Was that evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
When you respond to that vehicle, what do you do?
First on scene, would take photographs of the vehicle. And there was some EMS personnel there that pointed out there was some of the victim's clothing that had been left behind. So pretty much there, I would have taken photographs, collected some evidence, and maybe some blood swab.
Now, when you're conducting your work, do you have either a detective or a deputy that's with you?
Normally it would be one on scene, yes, ma'am.
Are you and that deputy or detective talking about what you're going to photograph and what you're going to collect?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you all work together to make decisions on, yes, this is something that may be relevant to the case?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you also have the authority and the training to make some of those decisions on your own?
Yes, ma'am.
When you're taking photographs, is there a system for taking photographs to document where an item may be coming from?
It would depend on the scene, but normally you would take overall photographs, then intermediate and close-ups, things like that.
When we're talking about this car that you responded to, so a second, we'll call it scene, do you take those overall, intermediate, and close-up photographs?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing defense has been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 68, 68A, 69.
All right, this is the
70A,
exciting part of the trial
70B,
where they call the guy that took
71,
all of the pictures and
72,
get all of the pictures
73,
introduced into evidence.
74, and 75.
But it seems like they're doing it very quickly and easily, which is good.
No objection, Your Honor.
Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Cashwell, I'm showing you, and I'll read the exhibit numbers out in a moment. If you'll just take a look at that stack of photographs, let me know if you recognize it.
Yes, those are the pictures. There we go.
To the record. Moving to evidence, what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 68, 68A, 69, 70A. That's in just a second. So when you respond to this vehicle, what is the first thing that you're doing prior to taking your photographs?
I was meeting with my supervisor.
Do you then learn what may be of relevance to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you photograph the vehicle before anything touched, moved, or disturbed?
The photographs that I took of this vehicle was exactly how I found it when I arrived.
After taking photographs, would you then go on to essentially a second stage of your processing or your investigation?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we'll get to that in a moment. Showing you what's been pre-marked as State's, or what is State's Exhibit 72. There's a screen up to your left. What are we looking at here?
That would be an interior view of the passenger front seat area of a Chevy Impala.
And then I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 71. Is this the Chevy Impala that we're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
And the vehicle that we're seeing in State's Exhibit 71, is that the vehicle that you said was the first, we'll call it scene, you respond to?
Correct.
All right. Let's talk specifically about this front passenger seat here. Was there anything of note to you in your investigation?
Definitely the red substance and the cell phone on the front seat.
Would you consider this to be a overall or a mid-range photograph?
That'd be a mid-range.
Do you have closer photographs of the items that were taken from that seat and documenting that seat?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm showing you State's Exhibit 74. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, ma'am. That's a closer view of the same passenger front seat.
And when you were referring to the red substance earlier, is that to the bottom left-hand side of this photograph?
Right on the seat bottom itself, yes.
And then the back of the seat, was that something you also photographed, but in a different photo?
Yes, ma'am.
As we're looking at this seat, is this exactly how you find it?
Yes, ma'am.
The location of that cell phone, exactly where you find it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. State's Exhibit 73. And I'll turn it this way for reference. What are we looking at here?
That would be the same passenger front seat, but a view of the back of it.
And then State's Exhibit 75.
That was a picture, close-up of the cell phone that was actually located on the same seat.
Same seat and same cell phone we were looking at in the earlier photographs.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you updating detectives on what you're finding, what you're documenting, and what you may be collecting as evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they then working with other detectives and providing this information to other detectives?
Yes, ma'am.
At this point, do you have other photographs you take outside of the vehicle before moving to a second scene?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing you 70B. What are we looking at here?
Now, this particular photograph was taken at another location on Domino.
And how does this photograph and that location relate to the vehicle and then what we get into in just a second?
Originally, one of the victims had climbed over a fence located on Ocean Mist and actually had fallen down at this scene and was transported from the Domino Circle back to the Ocean Mist court where the Impala was.
Did you learn all that information from the detectives briefing you?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, knowing that information, did that make what we're looking at in State's Exhibit 70B relevant to you?
Yes.
What are we looking at in 70B?
That is the actual blood spot from the victim that actually laid on that concrete.
And how far is this from the fence you were talking about, approximately?
From the backyard fence, 100 yards maybe.
Okay. So let's talk about the scene where we've got the backyard fence. What's the address of that location?
That would be the 604. Ocean Mist. I mean, sorry. Yeah, 604.
All right, and I'm going to jump a little bit ahead. Did you take aerial photographs as
Yes,
part
I
of your
did.
investigation as well?
Yes, ma'am, I
Okay,
did.
I'm going to show defense what's been pre-marked as 190B, 190B.
Ooh, drone
190B,
pictures. How
190A,
exciting.
and 190C for any objection.
All right. Well, while we have a bit of a silent break here, there was a couple of membership chats we want to talk about. Been there, done
As part
that.
of your investigation,
Member
did
for
you
4
take
months
aerial
says, "Who is that hairy homeless guy?"
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Do you recognize those aerial photographs?
That's funny.
And Andrew's son says, "I think we need a moratorium on Rule 3 for 1 day per month without a release valve. Pent-up animosity about you-know-who could become dangerous."
Yes, ma'am, I
Kind
did.
of an
Are they the
inside-
same or substantially the same conditions as the last time you saw these images?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, this time I'd ask to move into evidence what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 190B, 190D, 190E, 190A, and 190C.
No objection from the defense.
It'll be agenda.
All right. He's in here.
They should be the same backyard of 604.
All right. So in State's Exhibit 5A, we're looking at the front of 604.
Yes, ma'am.
So give me directions on where the fence line is in relation to this photograph.
It would be directly behind that house.
And then what would be the street that would be on the back side of this house?
Be Domino Circle.
We're standing on Ocean Mist looking at the house.
Yes, ma'am.
Domino would be the street behind it.
Yes, ma'am.
So the fence that you photographed is the fence that would be between the house on Ocean Mist and the house that would have been facing Domino.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, he's been in custody since 2010. The defendant
Let's
has.
talk about that fence. Showing you State's Exhibit 69.
That's such a crazy long time.
You can, but where's the fence that we're looking at?
There's a retention pond that runs alongside of that property behind 604.
Let me stop you for a second. Would that be down the middle of this photograph right here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And there's a steel fencing located in that photograph. That's the actual fence from 604.
Would that be almost directly in the center of this photograph?
Yes, ma'am.
The metal fence that we're seeing here?
Correct.
Was there anything, before you get up close and actually see substance on there, was there anything regarding the fence that looked like it had broken or damaged?
At that time, it had already been marked by Crime Scene Patel as evidence marker, and there was a section of the fencing that was pushed down with possible blood on it.
Showing you State's Exhibit 68. Where in this photograph do you see the marker?
On the very top of the fence, you'll see where the fence is pulled down. That was evidence marker 19.
Are you referring to the yellow square we see up there?
Yes, ma'am.
So what's an evidence marker?
Usually put those down to locate evidence for crime scene photographs.
Did you put that evidence marker down?
No, I did not.
Someone else put it before you take this photograph?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So when we're looking at this photograph, what are you looking to document here?
Just pretty much the location of it, reference to the two houses and the evidence marker number.
When you're standing and taking this photograph, are you in the backyard of 604 Ocean Mist, or are you outside of that backyard?
No, I'm in the backyard of the Domino court scene.
This would be looking at then the backside or the outside of the Ocean Mist fence.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And I'm showing you State's Exhibit 68A. Is this a close-up?
Yes, ma'am.
And that evidence marker 19, is that the same evidence marker that you referred to from the last photograph?
Correct.
And then there's a substance or a discoloration on that fence. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
What are we looking at there?
It's possible blood that was left on the fence as the one of the victims climbed over it.
Okay.
That was a weird fence.
Yeah, it's like a deer fence.
Something.
Ms. Horns area. After taking your photographs of both sides of that property, do you collect items of evidence?
I did.
And where do you collect those from?
The first items were from the 612 Ocean Mist court.
Okay. And what was from there?
Victim's clothing and some blood samples, possible blood samples.
Were the clothes of the victim you're referring to, did you have it labeled as Daniel Bell transport?
Yes, ma'am.
And were those clothes associated with the individual who went over the fence and into the car?
Right.
Was that information that was provided to you by law enforcement, by detectives?
Yes, ma'am.
Did that information help you understand why those clothes may be relevant?
Yes, ma'am.
When you're collecting those clothes, do you have procedures and methodologies that you're following to ensure those clothes are collected properly?
After they were pointed out to me, they were photographed, markered, and then apply gloves and put them in a paper bag and seal them up.
Once that bag's sealed, do you put labels and tape and your initials on it?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the purpose of doing all of that?
Well, it just identifies that I actually packaged it, I collected it, packaged it, and sealed it myself.
Do those items then get taken to another location to be formally impounded into evidence?
Yes, ma'am. They're taken to sometimes to our office and then to the evidence room.
Are there times when maybe something needs to be dried before it can be packaged?
If it's wet or bloody, it has to be dried first.
Okay. In this case, were the items that you impounded into evidence actually taken to evidence to impound and kept there?
Yes, ma'am.
When those items are packaged
Okay.
and put into evidence, are they given a unique label and tag number?
They have an evidence property number.
Does that occur to all items of evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that a system for documenting what may be received?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay, let's talk about November 25th. So same day, but actually later in the day. Do you respond to the medical examiner's office?
Yes, yes, ma'am, I did.
And what's the purpose of a crime scene investigator going to the medical examiner's office?
I was requested to go there by one of the detectives. I think it might have been Hollis. Requested I go there to photograph an autopsy.
Is that a typical procedure that the sheriff's office will do?
Yes, ma'am.
Do crime scene investigators attend autopsies?
Yes, ma'am.
While you're attending that autopsy, do you take photographs?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Do you collect items of evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
Typically, it would be clothes.
Clothing or projectiles or blood
Oh.
samples, hair fibers.
A fair
I
number
don't
of
think we're going to get to
items
see
you collect.
autopsy photos.
Are the
Probably not.
photographs taken by the crime scene investigator at an autopsy the same photographs that are taken by the medical examiner's office?
We take them at the same time, so a lot of those are duplicates.
But you all are using your own set of photographs.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you be taking photographs for a different purpose than potentially a medical examiner would be taking photographs?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you document what you're collecting and the
Yes.
photographs that you're taking?
Yes, ma'am.
So which autopsies did you attend on November 25th of 2010?
The deceased name was Sergio.
Petron?
Yeah.
And how many autopsies did you attend on the 25th?
One on that day.
Was that the only autopsy you attended for this case?
No.
Was there a second autopsy?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the date of that one?
The following day on the 26th.
Same procedures that you would have followed?
A little bit less because I believe an autopsy had been performed on him, and I went to do additional photographs the following day.
Would there be, in your experience, different procedures depending on if somebody was pronounced deceased at the scene compared to if they went to the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
And did the autopsies you attend reflect some of that?
Somewhat. I mean, there was less photographs for me to take because they'd already done a lot of the autopsy.
All right. Let's talk about December 4th.
Okay.
Did you continue to do work regarding this investigation, but at a different location on December 4th?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you respond to 4935 Bonita Drive?
Secondly, originally we responded to the district office where we all met around 8 o'clock in the morning, and then we went out to the search warrant where there was a lot of
Okay.
sheriff's personnel there.
Before you arrive on scene at Bonita Drive, are you briefed on why you all are going there?
Yes, ma'am.
What may be taking place?
While we were there, we were briefing on what we were going to be looking for and what the address was and how we were going to conduct the search out there.
Fair to say it's a large piece of property.
Yes, ma'am.
Were there multiple crime scene investigators who were responding to that property?
I responded with one other crime scene person and a few supervisors of mine.
Were you aware that that was not the first time that law enforcement, because of this investigation, had responded to that location?
That's correct.
So based on that, did you have knowledge going in as to what your role was going to be?
Yes, ma'am.
So despite it being December 4th, were you aware that there had already been investigations conducted after November 25th at that location?
Yes, ma'am.
What was your role and your responsibility on December 4th at the Bonita Drive address?
When we arrived, it was such a large scene, encompassing scene. There was already some detectives and sheriff's personnel out there, and we decided to split the property into two sections. One would have been on the Bonita scene. We would have split it down the middle, and crime scene Hager would have worked one half, and I would have worked the other. And they were primarily looking for dig sites, burn sites, projectiles, casings, things of that nature.
Okay. Was there any involvement by you in any sort of search or investigation inside of the home or homes located on that property?
I never went inside the home,
Yours was exclusively outside.
strictly outside.
Okay, so when we're talking about December 4th, we're talking about a search on the exterior of any residence that may be on that property.
Correct.
When you're talking about splitting that property, are you talking about literally you're taking the ground that's
We
outside
split
of the
it east,
house?
and there was a road that went down the center, and we split it east and west.
So you had which side, east or west?
Either west.
When you're conducting your search and your investigation, is that separate and apart from what crime scene investigator Hager would have been doing on the east side of that road?
Yes, ma'am. I never went on her side of the road.
And is there a reason for that?
I had pretty much been confined my search area just primarily around the house itself.
When you're conducting your search, do you have patterns that you're following, procedures that you're following to ensure that you're not missing anything?
Some of the case detectives that were out there had already located a burn pit and a couple of possible dig sites, so that I pretty much responded immediately to those.
that focus your attention on those areas,
Yes, ma'am.
limiting some of the other areas of the property.
I took some overall photographs of the other areas of property, but mainly my work was considered that one area where the dig sites were.
Was part of your work aerial photographs at that location?
Dig sites.
I did do aerial photographs on another day.
And although another day, we're still talking about the same property.
Yes, ma'am.
And Judge, I'd move into evidence what's been pre-marked as 190B, 190D, 190E, 190A, and 190C, if I haven't done so already.
Some of them were, but there's some additional ones that just have any objection.
Yes. No, just for the additional ones, but I believe I already said objection.
Okay, they'll be all be.
Okay, permission to publish.
You may publish.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Cashwell, I'm going to show you 190A.
Okay.
What are we
Let's
looking
see
at
the
here?
pictures.
That is an overall view, aerial view of the actual property at the 4935 Bonita Springs.
Now, you referred to a road earlier. Is this road what you're talking about down the middle of that property?
That would be the center of
rural
the road
area
that
there.
divided the property into two halves.
And for cardinal direction, so east and west, which side, and you can use right and left in relation to this photograph, what side did you take for your portion of the investigation?
The right side or west side.
So when we're looking at the right side of the photograph, that is the west side of the property.
Correct.
So if we're going to go with cardinal directions, we would in fact flip this over.
The side that I had.
Yes.
Wow.
You want me to flip it back for you?
Yeah.
All right. So if we're looking at the right-hand side of the
Okay.
photograph,
Okay, now I
is
got
that the west side of the property?
Mine was the right side, west
Okay.
side.
All right. So then where did you primarily focus your attention on that right side or west side of the property?
If you followed the road straight up from Bonita Springs up the driveway.
Let me stop you for a second. Would it be easier if you stood up and pointed?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, there's a ruler up there. That you may
There's a yardstick right in front of you. There you go. I'll let you know if you do.
Yes, this is an all-women prosecution team.
Now let me back you up for just a little bit. There's a clump of trees. I'm going to point to it on here that seem to be circling something. What are those trees circling?
This is certainly actual residence.
So when you're talking about searching around the property, are you inside that tree line or are you outside that tree
I
line?
took some photographs and wrote them on the side inside the tree line or fence line. But most of them were down in this area.
And how could you tell it was a dig site or a burn site? What indicates that to you?
Information already given by the detectives when you're out there, the state discovered. Usually when
You can sit down if you want. Sorry.
Yeah,
Didn't mean to make you
please.
stand.
we actually dug up a dead cow at one of the sites, and usually what happens is when a cow decomposes in soil and settle. So that was obviously one of the sites we hit, and then the other one.
Okay, so one of the dig sites turned out to be a cow.
There were some shoe marks around it. They were concerned about taking photographs.
Did you ultimately take some casts and impressions of some shoes? Did you learn that there was a second site that may in fact have been another decomposed cow?
Correct.
Did you focus your attention then on burn pits?
I did do a burn pit too.
And were those burn pits located around and outside of this tree line?
Burn pit was like right up in this corner here. So it was outside the tree line, kind of outside the fence line, but in the tree line a little bit.
All right, I'm going to show you some of the other photographs that were the aerial photographs taken. You let me know if any of those help you with your testimony regarding the burn pit. State's Exhibit 190C. What are we looking at here?
This would have been the main line coming in from Bonita Springs. The residence would have been here, and back in this corner, this burn pit was right in this tree.
So top left-hand side of the photograph, just on the outside of the tree line, would have been the burn pit that became the focus of your attention?
Sort of the southwest.
Okay. Now let's talk about that burn pit. When you say a burn pit, you can have seats going. What gave you the indication that something had been burned there?
It was a
There
pit
a
and
lot
there
of
was been
burnt
burned.
trash, and it was actually still warm. The burn pit when it got there.
We'll get to it in a little bit, but did you take temperature readings?
Yes, I did.
All right, so describe the area that we're talking about when you're saying that it's a burn pit.
It was right outside the southwest corner of the residence, and we were basically maybe looking for some items of clothing or projectiles or casings in the actual area where they were burning trash.
Did you use metal detectors?
Couldn't use it inside the actual pit. We could use it around the burn pit, but it was too hot for the metal detector.
Outside of the burn pit, did you locate anything with a metal detector that was of relevance to your investigation?
No.
Now, can't use the metal detector in the burn pit, but did you sift through the contents of that burn pit?
Yes, we did.
How did you all do that?
Well, you just shovel the pieces out and try to locate whatever you can that's not burned or too hot.
What did you find?
There was one particular item, I think it's the hottest part of the burn pit, where there's some grayish blue clothing that we collected out of the pit.
Was Detective Greg Thomas working with you?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Was he essentially the law enforcement officer that was with you conducting your investigation?
Yes, he's the one that pointed it out to me.
Do you document that item?
Photograph
it, and then do you ultimately collect it?
evidence marker it and collect it.
When you're doing all of this, is Detective Thomas with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have other items of evidence that become relevant to you from that burn pit?
No.
Do you have other work that you're doing on that burn pit?
Just the temperature settings. Trying to figure out what the hot areas of the burn pit was. In case
Okay, so walk
you
me
want to
through
collect
that.
things.
Walk me through how you guys are doing your temperature readings. What's your finding?
We photographed it, and then I have a infrared scanner that you use to point at the temperature, and you get a reading. And what we did is we marked off areas inside the pit and put markers down by areas that appear to be evidence or items burnt. And then we put markers by all those, scan them, got a temperature, and then collect anything we found, which was the clothing.
Did you document the temperature readouts at each of those evidence markers?
Yes, we did.
Now, fair to say that those evidence markers are still within what I'll call the circle of that burn pit.
They're inside the circle, yes, ma'am.
So if we're looking and calling it almost like a clock, they're at different numbers or points on that burn pit.
Into the burning
What
ring
were the
of
temperature
fire.
readouts at each of the markers within that
Well,
burn
Johnny
pit?
Cash.
Your recollection with your report. Go right ahead.
I know the hottest one we got was like 124 degrees.
The hottest one we got is me.
What I had was marker number 8. I don't know if you have a picture of that. That was the where the clothing was located.
Okay.
Registered 124 degrees.
All right. And then the next marker?
Then we went to marker number 9, which registered 102.5 degrees.
Oh, that's not
Marker
very
number
hot.
10 measured 107 degrees. Marker 11, 99.5 degrees. Marker 12, 104 degrees. And marker 13, 96.5 degrees. Marker 14, 118.5 degrees. And marker 15, 122 degrees.
Now, what time were you conducting your temperature readouts on December 4th?
That was later in the afternoon, probably around 1:30.
At that point, even though you can see the temperature readouts, can you still feel the ambient heat coming from this?
Oh, yes.
Is that what indicated to you maybe to take temperature readouts?
Yes.
Were there other burn pits on the property worked by either detectives or investigators that are not you?
Not on my side of it. That's no.
On the other side, would there have been potential items that Ms. Hager would have worked?
Yes.
And then was Detective Thomas, Greg Thomas, staying with you the entire time, or was he working other areas as well?
He was with me pretty much most of the time because him and my supervisor were the lead for me.
Was he there before you were?
Yes.
And did he stay after you did?
I'm not sure.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
So they're saying he burned all the evidence, like the clothes he was wearing at the time?
Seems to be. Well, they have the bodies.
I'll pass the witness. Yes, Your Honor.
No, that's not Strawberry complaining.
That's my dog.
All right. Looks like we got a little bit of cross X, and then we're going to wrap this thing up.
Good afternoon.
You indicated that there were several scenes that you attended and investigated, correct?
Correct.
I want to move specifically to the property, this last scene that you were just testifying to.
The search warrant?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe it was December 4th
Correct.
of 2010, correct?
2010.
So you were briefed prior to going to that property to look for specific items.
Yes, ma'am.
And what were those items?
Mainly they were concerned. They had already mentioned looking for possible spent projectiles, casings, ammunition. And I think it already came out because they were out there earlier than me about the burn pits and possible dig sites.
So you were directed, as you mentioned, to the burn pits, the dig sites. And
Correct.
I believe you mentioned that in the dig sites, there were buried animals. I think it was a
We
cow
did.
carcass.
Yes, ma'am.
Not unusual for animals to be buried outside of these types of properties.
No, I believe the homeowner is the one that pointed that out to us.
Rural area where there's farm animals, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you used a metal detector to search the specific areas you were directed to.
All of the dig sites and initially
it's
around
too
the
plain.
burn pit.
You did not find anything.
No, nothing metallic anyway. We did find some objects. I won't say nothing was found. As you're sifting with a metal detector, it'll alert you with a sound that there's something under there, and you'll dig that up, and it'll turn out to be a bottle cap or a can or something.
Right.
like
So
that.
nothing of evidentiary value,
Not
nothing
for
as
this.
it relates to the projectiles, cartridges, or firearms that
Correct.
you were potentially looking for.
Correct.
And there was other law enforcement officers present. I know you said there was another crime scene investigator on the other side of the property.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
gotta, I'll be right back.
I know there was quite a few people over there. I really couldn't tell you because I didn't witness an actual grid search.
That's okay. And again, to the burn pits. Rural areas such as this one, it's not unusual to use burn pits to burn trash.
Correct.
And I know you mentioned there was a grayish blue clothing that you located.
Yes, ma'am.
Was it clothing or was it fabric?
Fabric.
You can't say what it was.
I couldn't tell if it was a shirt or a jacket or.
It wasn't something that you picked out as evidence. It was just to do the temperature reading that you previously testified to.
We could actually see it in the burn pit, and that's why we did the marker and the temperature.
But again, its purpose was for the temperature reading, and you cannot say what type of item it was.
No.
I may have one moment.
All right.
Another question.
No redirect. Can be released by the state.
Released, subject to recall or released by the defense. You may step down. No need to remain outside today, but you are subject to recall. If we'll call you.
Yes, sir.
All right. You are welcome.
And
Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, it is
day.
4:56. So I'm going to send you home for the day. Just this room. I will. I just wanted to ask something. Well, that was almost pretty much perfect. We got done before 5 o'clock, so that worked well. I think you deserve some credit for that. I just wanted to ask something, and then I'll see if either side has anything before we break for the evening. But on the exhibit numbering, it's a little different than normal. It appears that they are not composite exhibits. They're done separately, like 190A, 190B, 190C. Is there a reason that they're not like 190 A, B, C, and D?
Defer to Mr. Pruner did the numbering, and we used the same numbering for last year from the last trial, so I'm not exactly sure why they are numbered the way they are.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't know something different, or it's a little unusual that they're separate. I don't think it's necessarily an issue, but on the list, referring back to 190, I don't have an E and F on the list.
Judge, there wasn't, and I don't know if we were using the same list from the last time, and I think that there were exhibits added as we went on that were not on the original list. So I'll have to go back and maybe edit it and send it again.
I think the record is fine. I don't see any issue with that, and they were shown to the defense. The defense didn't have any objections, so I don't foresee any problem with that. I was just a little confused with the way they weren't composite exhibits, and so they are actually tagged individually. It's 190A and then a 190B.
Yes, Judge.
Hey,
I don't know, defense.
No big fights here. All right, I guess that's it. That is the end of day one of this trial. Let me get rid of that before there's a cucking accident. We don't want an accidental cucking. All right, and when we'll bring this up when Valhalla comes back. All right, that brings to an end the day one of this particular trial. Got a few chats here to burn through before we wrap this up. Wait, where that was there we go. This is what I wanted. Chaos Coordinator says, "Hello, lady chick. Do you have any ice to sell?" Yeah, this was love over the ice cream. She inspired him to get an ice cream truck. How nice. And McCray H says, "Why was he going to Publix to get a gun? When did grocery stores start carrying guns?" Oh, Valhalla is back. As I was saying, we in Utah, pretty much everywhere sells guns.
Tennessee, you can buy guns at Walmart.
Yeah. And it's happening with Harper. Thank you so much for your chat. Why do we care a victim ran away? What good will that pic do? Well, it shows that somebody shot more than one person or more than two people. And there's blood there and maybe evidence. I don't know. We'll have to see what ties this together as we go along. What, if anything, ties this together? Glitterfart said, "So wait, WTF? He shot two of them, left, and the rest ran behind the house." What he's alleged to have done was he pulls up in a van. He's looking for Creeper. Creeper isn't there. He puts these guys down. He lines them up, makes them kneel down, takes their IDs, looks at them. And then he's reportedly wearing a law enforcement officer uniform of some sort when he does this. Then he just starts executing them, shoots two of them in the back of the head, and then people start to scatter, and he shot allegedly 4 more. So allegedly killed 2 and wounded 4, and 1 got away scot-free. How many victims? That answered that question as well. 2 dead, 4 injured. That's but this is just the trial for the 2 murders. I don't know whatever happened to the other 4. Bifron says, if he shot people sat from a vehicle, why burn clothes? allegedly didn't shoot them from the vehicle. As I said, they said the vehicle pulled up, he got out, showed some sort of badge, and he said he's looking for Creeper and made them kneel down. And when he started shooting people in the back of the head is when they realized he probably wasn't a real law enforcement officer. And
that was the first clue.
Yeah. And so, yeah, he didn't shoot from the van. He got out of the van. Even if it was police clothes or a shirt that said Federal Boob Inspector, burning it somewhere that can be linked to you as folly. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, let's kind of give you a little bit of a preview what's coming up here. As long as people are relatively interested in this case, we'll keep doing this. Again, we have the verdict has already been announced. It was announced about an hour ago, maybe hour and a half ago. So it's out there. If you don't know what it is, you're going to find out sooner or later. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm sure I'm going to find out pretty quickly, probably before we come back tomorrow. In which case, as long as you want, we'll continue to watch this to see and compare it to what we think what we think of the jury verdict, whatever the jury. And no spoilers. Let people find out when they find out. Naturally, no reason to spoil it for them earlier than it has to be spoiled. But I mean, once we know what the verdict is, we can watch the evidence being presented and see whether it comes up to a reasonable judgment on the merits of the arguments presented by the prosecution and defense. So we'll do this again tomorrow. See what happens. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thursday we'll start at. I'm converting time here in my head. 8 a.m. Eastern for the O.J. Simpson. We'll do O.J. for an hour and a half. Then we'll continue with this case. Friday morning we'll do this, and then Friday evening we have planned to do an episode of The Unexplained, where we'll talk about strange things happening in caves. And hopefully I will be joined by Flux and Danny on direct. And then we'll have a nice weekend. And Monday, we'll come back with Maritime Monday. I'm going to try to get an interview with one of the content creators we use on Monday, because I have a special thing that I want to do on Monday for Maritime Monday, if he can join. If not, we'll do it the next week. And then on Tuesday morning, while this is going on, we confirmed it looks like I will be talking to and interviewing Zenith Anderson on Tuesday morning. So hang tight for that. And we're still trying to get a date to talk to Solomon Anderson, brother and sister of Zachariah Anderson, who was just convicted of double murder in Wisconsin. So look for that. Maritime Monday on Monday, and an hour or two with Zenith on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, an hour or two with Saul, and we'll just continue doing this trial at 1.25 speed as long as you're interested in that. So that'll take us up through about the next 5-6 days.
That'll be cool. Zenith.
Don't forget, Ozzy gonna shave an emu with Jeff's help. I don't know what that's all about, but okay. All right. And let's see, I think Ozzy was gonna start streaming about 1:30, if I recall correctly. I don't know if he's streaming live yet. I'm looking to see if he's live, or we'll just dump you into him or a little bit earlier if that's something you want to do.
I think he's got at least another hour.
I had like 30 minutes, but I don't know.
He's scheduled at 1 p.m., which I believe is exactly 1 hour. So yeah, he's got another hour.
Okay. Another hour. All right. Well, we'll see who else is live. See if anybody's live right now that we can pile into. Let's see. Let's see. Who is live that we can dump into? Bear with me for just 1 second while I pull up the redirect screen here.
Nicholas is live.
Well, it depends whether he has the let people refer to you thing active. And no, he doesn't.
Oh, Nicholas.
All right. Well, looks like what we're going to do, if let me just double check here. Nicholas. Yeah, he hasn't given redirect privileges yet. So what we'll do is we will go with Law Talk with Mike. He's watching the Gwyneth Paltrow ski crash trial.
Nice.
As we speak. I would dump into Nicholas if I could, but he hasn't given permission yet. He probably doesn't know such permission exists. I'll have to talk to him about it. So here we go. Let's go to Law Talk with Mike for Gwyneth Paltrow ski trash. Ski trash. It is ski trash.
Have you been watching any of that one?
I've been watching a little bit of it.
Gwyneth Paltrow is by far the most likable person involved in that case.
That's not saying very much. Wow. All right, let's wrap this up here. Thank you for being with us, Valhalla.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Again, always welcome to be our lame man on the street, or layman on the street. We get you laid on the street.
I dig it. I dig it.
All right. And to have Mods, thank you for being here, Mods. Deeply, deeply appreciated. We'll see you tomorrow for more trial on Wednesday. And again, if everybody decides they don't want to watch this anymore, then we'll just bail on it. Otherwise, we'll keep going to see what we think of the verdict. And chat, thank you for being here. Chat, you guys were on fire tonight. That was great. Appreciate you. Appreciate these super chats that came in. Always appreciated. And with that, I think we'll wrap it up, and we're going to go on over to Law Talk with Mike. And please give Law Talk with Mike a hearty hello. Let him know it's a Vice Squad raid. Legal Vices is sending people his way. Thank you so much, and we will see you this time tomorrow.
Go make some noise, y'all.
As soon as I push save on the redirect button, I came milliseconds away from boomering that. All right, here we go. Bye, everybody.
Later, y'all.
And